Hey, Lark, a voice calls behind me. Whatcha reading? I flinch only slightly before turning around to see the happily grinning Xavier, who is thankfully not accompanied by Bentley today. The two of them seem to be together a lot, which I suppose might just be normal for roommates. Not that I'd know, as my situation is anything but. I like Xavier, all things considered. He's polite and always seems happy to see me, which is a rare but welcome experience. Oh, it's a copy of the Valkan legal code pertaining to business law, I tell him. Wow, that's some pretty dense reading, he answers, chuckling. You doing okay there? It's interesting, actually, I say. I like how the language is all very exact and clear, and usually gives guidelines when discussing areas explicitly about issues of interpretation. It's very easy to understand. Xavier tilts his head in surprise, leaning over the back of the couch where I'm sitting. I thought you were just starting to learn how to read like a 10 day ago, he says, surprised. Well, yeah, I admit. I have a few questions, actually, if that's okay. What's this word? I flip exactly 13 pages back, hold the legal tome up, and point at the word I couldn't parse. Air, that's machinery, Xavier says slowly. I scowl underneath my helmet, trying to resist the urge to flick an ear in annoyance. Well, why is it spelled like that, then? Reading is weird. Air, thank you. Yeah, no problem, L. Lark, another the voice calls out, and this one I don't just flinch at but straight up leap off the common room couch, landing with my whole body tense for a fight. The freckled and furious face of my roommate storms in, causing a lump of stress to start forming in my chest. I haven't had the courage to take Lady Vesuvius' advice and admit what I am to anyone, nor have I taken her advice to establish dominance. So things with Gina have been pretty much the same. Which is to say bad. I can't go to the public baths, I remind her instead. I'm sorry. I start walking out of the common room, towards the entrance to the dorms. Someone I recognize is approaching, and I have a sinking suspicion it's about me. Lark, your acrid fumes are filling our entire room, Gina presses, following me with the other trainees. The smell haunts my dreams. I will literally never be able to forget this. I stop. Sighing, I turn to face her. I'm sorry, I repeat, trying to keep the irritation out of my voice. I will ask my biomancer if there is any way I can take a sponge bath in one of her private rooms or something, but otherwise I'm not allowed to take my armor off. Well, I was. I grumble back, a bit more forcefully than I intended. I don't make the rules, I just follow them. I'm sorry. Honestly. But it's not my call, so if we can please just go back to ignoring the way each other smells, I would greatly appreciate it. Nope, I sigh quietly, swallowing a slight buildup of saliva. You smell fantastic, actually. Then it's not the same damn thing, is it? Gina snaps. Lark, are you sure you have this right? Who ordered you not to take your damn armor off, anyway? Well, isn't that a good transition? I did, Galdra the Annihilator answers smugly as I round the corner to meet her. Is that a problem, trainee? Immediately, Gina halts in place, surprise and terror pushing her body into snapping a crisp salute. I know, ma'am. No problems, High Templar, ma'am. You sure? Galdra asks. Because you're right, she really does smell like a cat starved to death in my toilet. Gina blinks, a dumbfounded expression on her face as I appreciate that my helmet hides the same. If you ordered it, ma'am, then. Gina stutters. So close. Galdra says. So very close. But it's just, if you ordered it, ma'am. No, then, because the, it will be done, is implied. Templars, trainee, are an organization with a lot of moving parts. Sometimes, we will receive orders we don't like, and sometimes you are just going to have to shut up and trust that the church knows its business. I assume you can do that, trainee. Yes, ma'am. Gina answers primly. I ask, but the only response I get is Galdra grabbing me by the arm and dragging me out of the barracks. I could probably just not let her yank me wherever she wants, even given how light I am for my size, but I feel like your superior officer grabbing and forcing you to move a certain direction sort of technically counts as an order. It's a weird feeling, and when combined with the incredible power I smell from the High Templar, it makes my body think it's currently in a fight to the death. I just have to go with the flow, focusing on staying calm while carefully not flexing any of my extraneous body parts. Mice, ma'am, I tell her. Wow, that'd do it. Mice sound gassy. I don't actually flatulate, I clarify. She moves her head in a manner that indicates she's rolling her eyes. Damn, okay princess. If anything, that makes it even more impressive that you smell this bad. Sorry, I mutter. So where are you taking me, anyway? My house, Galdra answers, finally letting go of my arm as I start matching her pace. You have a house? I ask, surprised. She gives me what I assume is probably a weird look under her helmet. What? Yeah, I have a house, she answers. Of course I have a house. You realize most people have houses, right? I look away sheepishly. I mean no. How should I know? Everyone had a house in Preacher Gregory's village, I guess, but a lot of people didn't in New Talsey. Right. Watcher, you're ignorant about the weirdest shit, Galdra complains. So the short answer is that yeah, some people don't have a home, but it's usually not by choice. If you don't have a house, you are poor. I am a High Templar, so I am rather rich. Therefore, it can be assumed I have a house. Okay. I think I can follow all that logic. I know what money is, at least, although I've never owned or used any. Preacher Gregory's village didn't have money, everyone just helped each other when there was a need. On the surface that felt less complicated, but it wasn't really. There were transactions everywhere, I just didn't understand them. That's part of why I've been enjoying learning about laws. They are easy rules to follow, all written down neat and orderly in a place where I can actually, finally see them all. There's so much clarifying information. It feels like finally having a handbook on how to not mess up and ruin everything. Okay, thank you, I tell her. I appreciate that you explain these things. By the way, where is Templar Captain Dassel? Oh, I ditched him right before picking you up, Galdra says cheerfully. That's why we're walking so fast. Oh, well, that's not my business. I'm pretty sure she's not supposed to be without Dassel, but no one is going to fault me for not calling Galdra the Annihilator on something. She is, after all, my superior. That's one of those things the rules make really simple and easy. It's not long from there before we pass by the busy streets of wooden buildings and get to a much calmer district, where everything seems to be made of stone. I've taken to the habit of ignoring as much as I can whenever I walk the streets of Skyhope. There's nothing quite like hearing part of a furious argument and always wondering if I could have helped diffuse it, or seeing the slightest facial bruise on a cheek and being haunted about that person's situation at home. I know that I not only can't help the majority of people I come across, but I'm actively not supposed to. I am not a Templar yet, not fully trained to insert myself where I can help, but still representative of the Templars by my status. Butting in before I know what I'm doing would just risk making things worse. Still, with major crimes like premeditated murder with malice aforethought, unlawful detention and torture, and of course improper corpse disposal with the aggravating factor of cannibalism no longer adding themselves to my record, my mind seems to enjoy finding new ways to make me hate myself. Negligence is also a crime, and no matter how justified I am in ignoring harm where I see it, I still add every possible minor guilt trip to the mental list that reads itself over and over in my head when I'm insufficiently distracted. Anyway, my point is, I keep my attention locked on as small a scope as I can, most of the time. Fewer tempting scents, fewer unwarranted fight or flight triggers, and fewer regrets. Yet even I noticed that the stone building district has a very different atmosphere to the wood building district. No vendors on the streets, no rowdy conversations, fewer people but all with more colorful clothing. It's odd. Why is it so different here? I ask. The perception event tore down the literal wall dividing the classes, she answers. But Vesuvius went and introduced a cheap construction alternative that more or less made another one. If you're rich enough for stone, you die before you get caught owning a wooden building. Huh. Now I'm even more confused. That's got to be a metaphor, right? I ask. I can't think of any way monetary quantity could kill you if you use the wrong construction material unless rich people like, I don't know, put all their coins in a big room and the wood will break and spill it on them, or something. Galdra stares at me for an uncomfortably long moment. Actually, she says seriously, you've got it spot on. That's the exact reason. Wait, seriously? I exclaim. How that doesn't make any sense. I was being purposely hyperbolic. Society is strange and esoteric, Lark. Sometimes things just don't make sense on the surface. Why can't you just build a stone room and then build the wood around it? Wouldn't that be more efficient? Nope, it doesn't work, Galdra insists. I wait a beat to know. Avail. Is she not going to elaborate on that? I guess she's not going to elaborate. Okay. What the frizzle is going on here? Wouldn't this also mean Lady Vesuvius is poor? I ask. I thought she was rich, but her research facility is made of wood. She is indeed poor, Galdra says solemnly. Please give her my condolences for this fact the next time you see her. Okay. See, this is exactly my problem. How do all the humans just know this crazy stuff? I want to press further but Galdra doesn't continue the conversation, so I don't either. Eventually she turns towards a 2-story stone house, relatively small in size for the area. It is, presumably, her house because she opens it up with the key and immediately starts deactivating various spell glyphs around the inside of the entryway. A tingly feeling in my spines warns me that I should stay well back until she finishes. Once inside, I note that most of the furniture seems to be covered in some kind of discarded hair. Soon after I spot the source, various domestic house cats peek their heads into the room, all of varying fur length and color. Hello, babies. Galdra coos in that frighteningly affectionate voice she always uses before grabbing my ears. Yes, Mommy's home. Oh, look at you. You're all so cute. I flinch, instinctively double-checking that my helmet is on securely and taking as much solace as I can in the fact that she doesn't seem to be talking to me. No, all evidence indicates that she is talking to the cats for some reason, despite the fact that I am fairly certain cats don't know how to talk. That's, cool. I'm sure this is a normal human thing. An overflowing pack of cats starts to stream into the room from who knows where else in the house, all crowding around her legs and mewling like it's a competition to make the most painful possible sound. Do you want your treats? Galdra mews right back. Do you need your delicious treats from Mommy? Yes. It's time for treats. She wades through the lake of cats as I follow awkwardly behind her, keeping my distance so I don't scare the poor animals. If I try to get close, they'll probably all run away. Which is fair, because after a tendy of nothing but mice I could definitely eat a cat right now. As we pass through the house and enter what looks like some sort of small dining hall, I'm startled to see a human woman in the room, who immediately turns to bow at Galdra. Welcome home, Lady Carthala, she says. How has your day been? Oh, fine, it's been fine, Galdra answers dismissively. Fill the bath for the guest and I, would you? Right away, Lady Carthala. Now who wants some treatsy-weetsies? Galdra asks, returning attention to her cats as she pulls what I assume is cat food out from a cupboard. You do. Yes you do. What a good girl you are, Penelope. I blink in surprise. Wait, what? I ask. Is Lady Vesuvius here? Galdra laughs. No, no, of course not. I just name all of my cats after people I hate so that I can complain loudly about them in public and not get charged with slander. Speaking of, who pooped on the bed last night? You did, Remus. Yes, you did. She starts scratching one of the cats behind the ears, the cat leaning happily into the rubs. A defamation, expressed with both falsity and malice, which injures the character of the person defamed shall henceforth be known as the crime of slander, I quote. Claims which would harm a person's reputation, or which would cause them to lose preferment in marriage or service, or in their trade, or in any other occasion carry the weight of damages, and it is therefore right and just that perpetrators of such false claims should repay those damages. To qualify for a civil charge of slander, the alleged victim of defamation must. This morning, I answer. Apologies, you probably know all that already. My point is that even if you have a cat of the same name you could still be sued for slander if your words intentionally damaged the reputation of. No, Galdra says, cutting me off. That won't happen. It could happen, sure, but it won't because no one is going to want to get into a protracted legal battle with me just because I do petty shit like name my cats after them. Isn't that right, Arcee-Warsey? Who's a good little heretical baby? You are. Does ours want his scritches? I am not sure I understand, I admit. Galdra sighs. Okay, I take it back. Apparently, having written laws doesn't change the amount of unwritten ones I don't understand. I got the general impression that the point of laws was to provide an equal playing field so that you can't get away with things due to personal power, I answer hesitantly. Oh sure, yeah, you're exactly right, Galdra answers amicably. So then why? The laws just don't work very well, honey, Galdra answers with apparent solemnity. I frown. I admit I only just started learning about them, but they seem like they should work. They are certainly much more thoughtfully written than most explanations I get about what is and isn't okay to do. She pauses for a moment, tapping the side of her helmet thoughtfully. Except Vesuvius, I guess. She might actually do stuff like that. But then it's not slander because it's true. I open my mouth to respond, but the woman from before re-enters the room and bows again, telling Galdra that the bath is ready. From there I get quickly rushed out of the room where all the cats fight over various morsels and pulled into a private room with a tub of water where Galdra starts to strip. I flinch in surprise when her helmet comes off. She has the age wrinkles like August did, though not as many or as pronounced. She has no hair either. Instead, the entire top of her head, around behind her ears, and down the back of her neck is all replaced by a shiny, worked plate of metal engraved with intricately detailed magical patterns. The rest of her body is a maze of inflammations, skin bending between red and ashy all round her taut frame. She's toned and muscular, but her body still has the hints of that fragility I've come to associate with age. Age which I now know means a person is, slowly but surely, dying. I put the thought out of my mind for now, removing my armor as well. The moment my helmet is off I give into the painful urge to stretch and flick my sore ears, and the need to move the many trapped parts of my body only increases from there. I speed through the motions of undoing the bindings on my armor, carefully disassembling everything exactly the way I'm supposed to as I time myself in an attempt to do it faster than I ever have before. It's certainly not something I get much practice at, so I, unfortunately, fail to beat my record. Still, as much as I hate my body, it feels so good to be free from those bindings. I roll my second set of shoulders, splay my toes, and extend the spines on my back as I let out a delighted hum. Everything is so coiled and stiff. I want to run around. My thoughts on the matter are disrupted when Galdra lifts a giant glob of cold water with a kineticism spell and blasts us both with it. With terrifying speed I'm lifted off the ground by the torrent as it swirls around me, scrubbing all over my body in a terrifying vortex before spitting me back out onto the ground, soaked and confused. Woo! Galdra cheers. That's always a fun way to do it. Was that it? I ask, shakily standing up on my toes. My heart is pounding too fast to force my body out of a combat stance. Of course not, she answers happily. That was just to get clean. Now we're going to actually have a bath. What's the difference? She leads me to an adjacent room which appears to be a very small artificial lake. Tada! Get in, it should already be at least kinda warm. She wades into the water but I stay right where I am, ears pressed flat against the top of my head. Warm? I ask. Look, I don't really like water that much, so. Galdra twists towards me with an expression of shock on her face. It's kind of weird thinking of Galdra as a person with expression at all, as strange as that is to say. I'm just so used to her having a helmet on. I jump, terror flowing through me as I scuttle into the pool immediately. Sorry. Sorry. I yelp, quickly dunking myself into the water. Watcher's eyes, girl, I wasn't complaining, Galdra grumbles. It's almost not fun to tease you when you just blandly accept any indignity I throw at you. I sink into the water, stretching my body out and letting the heat enter into my bones. It's not as bad as I expected. I guess warm water is nicer than cold. I vibrate my quills a little, pulling in a bit more heat. If you aren't enjoying it, you can always just stop teasing me, I answer her. Meh, half points, she quips back. It's not really asserting yourself if you just passive-aggressively phrase it as a favor to me. Besides, I said almost. Now quit sucking all the heat out of the tub, damn it. I flinch, immediately halting and retracting my quills. Sorry, I say automatically. I sink down a bit further under the water. She's disappointed in me for some reason, which is a bit frightening. I hope I didn't do anything too badly. Yes, please, I squeak softly. How much heat can you take, she asks, her expression suddenly back to a grin. I'm not sure, I admit. More than this. The warmth is nice. It is, isn't it? She agrees, and slowly but surely more heat creeps through the pool. We sit quietly together like that, basking in the startlingly good feeling of hot water around our bodies. I continue to stretch my inhuman parts as much as I can, since I know that soon they will be trapped back in armor. All the while, I think to myself about things Galdra has said, things Lady Vesuvius has said, and all the many questions that bubble up in my mind alongside the water around me. What does getting your goat mean? I ask after a while. I assume it's some kind of phrase, since I don't have any goats. It means I'm trying to annoy you or straight up piss you off on purpose, Galdra answers. I frown, flicking my ears in irritation. Why would you do that? I ask. Well, partly because it's fun, she says, which shocks me. Fun? Really? But it's so mean. Mostly because I'm seeing how you respond, though, she continues. Command wants to know how you react to shit. So Lady Vesuvius was right, then. It's a test, I realize. Yup, Galdra confirms. And I gotta say, you are doing a great job at being an obedient little tool. I smile. Well, that sounds good. Galdra doesn't smile back, though, instead giving me a very serious look. Is there a problem? I ask hesitantly. You said Templars are supposed to follow orders and stuff. I just don't know if having that attitude towards everything is going to be best for you, kid, she grunts. There's orders and then there's orders, you know. There's a pause. No ma'am, I admit. That doesn't make any sense to me. Galdra sighs. Yeah. I know. For whatever reason, she doesn't explain so I don't ask. The two of us continue to lounge, my quills now thrumming quickly enough to twist and absorb all the nearby light, preventing me from seeing anything. Galdra doesn't seem to mind that I've just become a patch of darkness in her tub, thankfully, because the huge amount of energy flowing into my body feels heavenly. I set to massaging my enormous toes with two of my arms while the other two try to pull apart the many unruly knots in my hair. I really appreciate you letting me into your home and helping me get clean, I tell her eventually. I assure you, kid, my motivations were purely selfish. I don't see how that would change anything, but thanks for letting me know, I suppose. She barks out a laugh. Anyway, is it okay if I ask a question? I continue. Go for it, she grunts. Is the armor also a test? I ask. It's restrictive to the point of being problematic for many people other than me, which I don't like. And all of the other trainees seem to think it would be acceptable and normal for me not to follow my orders in this case. I don't understand why. Is it because it's a test? Galdra looks at me carefully for a moment. You're asking the wrong question, Galdra answers. Everything is a test, Lark. What you really want to ask is whether the test is about yes and no, or how and why. Does that make sense? I think so, I say. How do I figure that out? You don't, she says unhelpfully. If you want to give whatever answer you think someone else wants, you just have to guess. But if you want to give the answer you want, you need to decide. I hesitate. I'm still not sure I understand, I admit. Galdra sighs. Yeah, I'm not a great speaker. More of an example kind of woman. I'll think of a good analogy for you in a bit. Okay. Thank you. We return to silence, the water continuing to get hotter. It just feels so nice, so relaxing. I should never have doubted Lady Carthala. This will be a good memory to live through again if I need to calm myself down. For some reason, a bunch of muscles in my throat start to involuntarily vibrate alongside my quills, producing a rolling humming noise with every intake and expulsion of breath. It's odd and surprising, but it sends pleasant vibrations through my bones, so I decide to just let it happen. Holy shit, Galdra mutters quietly. You really are a cat. Catzel, I correct blearily. I used to eat a bunch of catzels. They're called that because they're just big cats, Lark. Apparently, they even purr. They're tasty, I murmur. I feel like I'm starting to drift into torpor. Oh, well. Okay, that's close to your heat limit, then, Galdra says, and to my great disappointment the water starts suddenly getting cooler. Damn, girl, you didn't even seem comfortable until we were way past what would boil a normal human. Those night shroud quills are no joke. Where do you keep all the heat? What do you mean? I ask, the throat vibrations halting as embarrassment starts invisibly flushing my face. The water does seem awfully steamy. There are a bunch of bubbles forming around Galdra's body and rapidly shooting up to the surface, seemingly coming from nothing. I was tracking the heat entering your quills, Galdra explains. It gets sucked up into your body and then pop. It vanishes. Which, to put it lightly, is not how energy tends to work. Lady Vesuvius could probably give you a better answer than I could, I tell her. I ate the night shrouds, you called them. I ate the night shrouds because they don't eat at all. I was hoping I could evolve that, but it doesn't really seem to matter how much heat and light I absorb through my quills, I'm still always hungry. That's all I know. Well, A loud beeping noise suddenly rings out in the adjacent room, where we left our armor. Galdra scowls, then wordlessly gets up out of the water and retrieves a tiny metal orb on a chain, less than the size of a knucklebone. She presses her thumb on it and holds it up to her face. Hi Templar, the orb buzzes in answer, sounding like the voice of a frazzled young man. Captain Dassel reports that you are not with him. I'm at home, Galdra snaps. I'm allowed to have privacy at home. You didn't call me just for this shit, did you? If only. We got an emergency call from site for a short while ago. Since then, they've gone dark. Color drains from the High Templar's face. She hisses. Epsilon status. Unknown. Assumed free until proven otherwise. The facility reported an invasion of 2 powerful undead and a kineticist matching the talent description of the former leader of the Broken Drakens. That's all we know. I'll be ready in 2 minutes, Galdra growls. You are on home guard, High Templar. Braum and Kasha are our dispatch units for this. Why not me? I can be non-lethal if the situation calls for it. You are on home guard, High Templar. Please go about your daily activities as usual. Just remain on high alert in case the situation escalates. We will direct Captain Dassel to meet you at your residence. That is all. I nod, and with only the smallest amount of regret extract myself from the warm pool. What was that? I ask. Instinctively, my ears go flat against my head, my body stiffening as my breathing becomes as shallow and quiet as possible. That tone of voice, something deep inside me knows to be frightened of it. Yes, ma'am, I confirm quietly. Good, Galdra says firmly. Let's get dressed. I follow her back into the room where we rinsed off and left our things, and I'm vaguely pleased to find that someone apparently scrubbed out and washed the inside of my armor while I was in the bath. It's a little difficult to be overly excited about it, however, since I'm still reeling with the fact that I have just been ordered to lie. And that's weird. August told me in no uncertain terms that lying is wrong. Well, hopefully no one will ask. It's not as though a weird conversation like that is likely to come up later. When Galdra and I are fully armored once more and my inhuman parts are fully hidden, we wait outside her house for Dassel to show up. It doesn't take long for him to do exactly that, primly standing with his arms clasped behind his back as he stares at the both of us. You know, High Templar, it is somewhat irregular for a trainee to be invited home alone with her sponsoring Templar, he says slowly. It was not my belief that you did, Dassel answers calmly. But part of my job is to manage anything that might damage the integrity of your public image. Frequently, the default assumption when one engages in actions that have significant capacity for abuse is that they are abused. Sorry, how would that even work? I ask. That word means sex in this context, right? I understand how that works biologically, but the High Templar and I are both female. Dassel, after a brief and pregnant pause, turns to stare pointedly in Galdra's direction. Nuh-uh, don't you look at me, I'm not gonna explain it to her, Galdra snaps. Well yeah, sure, I knew gay people existed, I agree. I just didn't realize they had sex. A single second of silence passes between us before Galdra busts out in a full-bodied boisterous laughter, nearly doubling over as her voice rings through the street. Even the ever-expressionless Dassel seems a little sheepish under his helmet. I am sorry. I say defensively. I didn't know. How was I supposed to know? I don't know anything unless someone explains it to me. It's fine, Lark, Dassel says, barely audible over Galdra's wheezing. Now you know. Shall we return to the barracks? Please, I whine. A ton of people are staring. The 3 of us start the return trip to the barracks, Galdra's hooting laughter following us as I silently endure my face's furious blushing. This continues all the way out of the stone building district, back to the much busier streets of the main city. I'm halfway convinced Galdra is going to keep laughing the entire trip back when she suddenly halts so abruptly, so completely that it sends a shiver down my spine. Lark, Galdra hisses, her hand clamping down on my shoulder as she leans close to whisper to me. You see that woman with black hair, leaning on the side of the building in front of us? I flick my eyes around, quickly identifying who she must be talking about. A woman I've never seen before, apparently ignoring us and everyone else as she stares the opposite way down the road. Yes, ma'am. I confirm. Kill her, Galdra orders. Use your teeth. My breath catches. My mind stops. I couldn't have possibly just heard those words. No way. What? I breathe. That's an order, Lark, Galdra snaps. Kill her. Now. I swallow. What? What? What is happening? This is I can't. Lark. Galdra presses. I refuse. I shout back. Then again, more quietly. I refuse. Lark, if you do not kill that woman right this second you will be ejected from the Templars, Galdra promises, her grip so hard on my shoulder I think she's damaging the chitin. Then I will be ejected from the Templars, I answer quietly. She grabs my other shoulder as well, spinning me to face her. If you are ejected from the Templars, I will be ordered to kill you, Lark, she hisses. Kill. That. Woman. My whole body is shaking. My mind is on fire. I don't understand what's happening, but this is it, isn't it? It's over. I can't kill her. I refuse to kill her. I desperately want to kill her. But I will not. I must not. If that means I have to run from Galdra's wrath, well, it's a good thing I am very fast. I refuse, I tell her again. She stares at me for a little while longer, and then just as abruptly as this all started, it ends. She releases my shoulders, stands up straight, and nods. Well, all right then, she says, and starts walking towards the barracks again. Dassel and I share a look and then start after her, my heart vibrating almost as fast as my throat did while I was purring. Wait. I say. So, am I kicked out of the Templars? Nah, Galdra answers. Actually, I'm feeling a little better about how well you'll do with us. I blink. What the oh? Oh. That was a test. I exclaim. So I did well. Galdra rumbles. Well, that depends. Are you proud of your answer? I think about that all the way back to the barracks. Am I proud? I mean no. Not really. I've been proud of things before. I've been proud of clever traps, of successful hunts, of deducing correct answers and of arranging pretty collections of flowers. This does not feel like pride. It's just the only answer I had available to me. There was no choice. I can't let that ever be a choice. But taking off my armor isn't like that. It's a different kind of tempting, one that I don't think will get anyone hurt. It's just something I want, and something that people I know want. That's it. So maybe it's the other kind of test. Sitting alone in my room, I torpor until Gina enters, locking the door behind her. Well, look who it is, Gina drawls. Thank the Watcher for Galdra the Annihilator, valiant defender of Skyhope and also my nose. I'll tell her you said so, I say. I think she'd like to hear that. Gina flinches. Shit, please don't, she mumbles. I tilt my head in confusion. Okay. I won't then. So, are you ready to see under my helmet? Gina, midway through the process of splaying herself out on her bed, stops moving for a split second before pulling herself back into a sitting position. You finally got permission, she asks suspiciously. No, I didn't, I say. Want to see anyway? I mean, yeah, I've been saying that since we met. I nod, carefully undoing the straps on my helmet and pulling it free, shaking my poofy bundle of hair as my ears flick upright. I watch, almost in slow motion, as my former hunter roommate's eyes go wide, her pupils dilating in terror as her jaw falls open, utterly silent as adrenaline briefly restricts her instinct to breathe. Her body is still, and I wait for her to decide whether to attack, scream, or flee. She does none of these things. No, she says just a few words, and they make me want to run away instead. My roommate and I each stare at each other in horror, for vastly different reasons. Neither of us has the courage to break the silence until eventually the burning agony of my question becomes too much to hold on to. You know Fulvia? I ask breathlessly. Gina takes a while to register my words, for her eyes to stop staring at me and actually focus on me. I don't blame her. I know what I am. What I don't expect is for her to dart a hand underneath her pillow, pull out a knife, and start backing towards the door. My eyes zero in on the knife without my input, and as time seems to slow I can feel them dilate. Threat. Food. Kill. My ears shoot upwards, pointing her way after one briefly swivels towards the door, double-checking for threats outside. Heart hammering, adrenaline pumping, memories of fighting and killing blade-wielding hunters playing vibrantly through my head, I carefully do not bare my teeth or move from my seat. There is no food here. There is no danger here. And if there is danger, let it take me without resistance. I refuse to move until Gina makes it all the way to the door, flipping the latch unlocked. Then and only then do I let myself act, since I need to place my helmet back on my head in case she opens the door. "You're dead," she hisses. "She said you were dead. If even half of what she told me is true, then I deserve worse than death," I finish for her, strapping my helmet back into place. I know what I did. The words catch in my throat. I don't deserve to ask them. I don't deserve to know. I'm too weak to just shut up and hold my tongue, though. "Is she okay?" I whisper. From the midst of her panic, Gina manages to give me an incredulous look. I flinch, nodding slightly. Well, it sounds like Fulvia is still alive, and at least doing well enough to continue being a hunter. That's good to hear. Gina, meanwhile, has managed to quickly stabilize her shaking and settle into a combat stance, her knife still pointed my way. If I had any food handy I would offer to let her stab me if that will make her feel better, but as is it would be too dangerous to let myself get injured. I might hurt her instinctively if I start bleeding enough. "Please put that away," I ask her. "I won't hurt you, and I can't let you hurt me." Scary. Gina is slow. Everyone here is slow. A single slash of claws to her knife-holding wrist and she has nothing. The door opens inwards, backed up against it like she won't be able to escape the teeth that follow. Even if she somehow stabs me, it won't matter. The knife will gouge my flesh, slick with black blood, and then the wound will vanish as my teeth tear into her body and soul. So sure, the knife is scary. But not because I'm afraid to get hurt. "Gina," I say evenly. "How many Vrothizo have you killed?" She snorts. "My team has taken out nearly 20 of you bastards," she sneers. "Okay," I continue, "and how many have you taken out?" "Alone. With nothing but a knife." I stand up slowly. I'm hoping what Lady Vesuvius said is right, and all I will need to do is remind her what I am and she will back off. But I guess I underestimated Gina's courage, or maybe her stubbornness. She has been very annoying, and while I understand that I deserve this harsh treatment, if it is for the sake of getting her to put her weapon away I will try Penelope's suggestion. I don't have to, though. The moment I start to stand up Gina grabs the door handle, yanks the door open, and sprints out of our dorm like she's on fire. I take a deep breath, close and lock our room back up, and remove my helmet, remaining inside. Then I curl up on my bed and start to cry. I'm stupid. I'm so stupid. Why did I think this would be a good idea? Of course it's just going to make everything worse. Of course it's just going to make everyone hate me more. I deserve it, I know I deserve it, but it doesn't make the terror or the hate any easier to swallow. I don't remember, the loud one whispers, its voice odd. What? Fulvia, the beautiful one turns its head to look at its companion. What don't you remember? Their names, my meal moans. I don't remember their names. Whose names? Fulvia. Fulvia, listen to me. Look at me, please. I remember how I felt back then. Fulvia, no, the loud one, in my memories, was barely better than any other annoying food. Favorable because she was flavorful. Nothing more, nothing less. I remember every scream, every cry, every single time she begged for the release of death. I didn't understand her words at the time, but I know I wouldn't have cared even if I had. Before my mistakes and the careful words of a wise man shoved how wretched I truly am into my face, that is all I was. And the worst part is that's not just in the past, it's not some other monster in my body who thought that way. It was me. Sometimes, in flashes, it's still me. Gina can be a frustrating bully, and in moments of weakness I find my thoughts tempted towards the emotionless self-interest that summed all I was before I knew August. It would be so easy to eat everyone here. If I just cast off the armor holding me back and let my teeth rip free, dang it. Just like that, I'm already thinking about it. Imagining it. Wishing for it. I squeeze the side of my bed, gauntlets straining against my grip. Why do I have to be this kind of monster? Why did I hatch as a literal nightmare from the forest rather than as a real person? What does the Watcher want with me? Why does this trial have to be mine? The tears continue to flow, my body shaking as my mind is racked by memories. Blood, combat, joy. Pain, injury, loss. Friendship, betrayal, realization. My whole life plays itself back in front of me at rapid speed, taunting and tormenting me at each mistake. I have to get up, I have to move and distract myself from this or it will never stop. But I don't have the will. I can only spiral lower and lower, desperate for something, anything to grab onto and make it end. So for the first time in nearly 2 years, I start to sing. This is a Lark story. Content yet seeking more. The lark flies far for she loves naught but to explore. From islands high she sees so far, searching still for something new. But the lark can't fly above the sky. So down and down she flew. Over and over, I stab myself with Claretta's lullaby, a painful but comparatively tolerable memory. The words don't sound very good on my first verse, nor my second, but I remember exactly how they are supposed to sound and I never make the same mistake twice. I sing and I sing and I sing, letting the simple task of vocal mastery distract me from my tears, my regrets, and my mistakes. Then, when I finally believe I can manage it, I curl up with my arms clutched around my head and force myself into torpor. Before I know it, day has passed to night and back again. It's time for classes, and Gina still hasn't returned to the dorm. I hope she's okay, and I suppose the best way to find out is to go about my business. Strapping my helmet back on, I wander out to the courtyard for combat class. Under my breath, I find myself still humming the song. I'm first to the courtyard, as usual, but the others quickly learn the consequences of showing up late. Having to run a bunch more is apparently unpleasant for humans, which is one of those things I just had to ask. As such, it isn't long until Melik and Harvey show up, then right after them is Gina, Xavier, and Bentley. All three of whom are rather pointedly staring at me. No one speaks as all of us line up and stand at attention, waiting for the instructor to arrive. It's a bit of a tense situation, but after yesterday I'm too worn down to be particularly affected by it. I suppose that's one advantage of being haunted by the past. Well, we've gotten the bullshit out of the way, the instructor barks as he walks onto the field, apparently deciding to waste no time before starting the lecture. I know how you idiots all fight. I know exactly what nonsense you need to unlearn. Which means we can finally begin the main purpose of this course, teaching you degenerates how to not embarrass yourselves with a sword. He paces back and forth in front of us as I frown to myself. Combat class has quickly become my least favorite over the past 10 days, and weapon practice is unlikely to endear it to me any more than it was before. He keeps talking, and I am fairly certain I pick up the gist of things. I've seen and fought people that use sword and shield, although most of them are slightly different from the Templar standard. Nora used a shield almost as large as she was when we fought, which made it relatively easy to get into her blind spot. That was a deceptively double-edged advantage, however, because it turned out to be less of a boon that I could blind her and more of an issue that I had to blind her if I wanted any hope of getting at her more vulnerable allies. Likewise, Alan used a two-handed sword instead of a sword and shield, but I understand what the instructor is talking about. Eventually, the instructor hands out practice blades and we spend the next 2 hours practicing drills, which is another one of those things that's helpful to humans but mostly a waste of time to me. After confirming with the instructor that I'm doing the drills correctly, it doesn't take much time before I can speed them up close to the limit of what I'm comfortable with, in either hand. Harvey and Gina seem to be fairly comfortable with the practice swords, but most of the others are still struggling to get the drills right at all, let alone get them up to my speed. I wonder if maybe the Watcher gave me a body and mind that learn quickly because he doesn't intend for me to be in this world very long. That would be nice. After class, I try to immediately move towards our next class but I'm intercepted by Xavier and Bentley. Which isn't really unexpected, I suppose. They have both removed their helmets, since for other people it's not required to wear the Templar armor outside of combat practice. Bentley seems confused, a bit hesitant. Xavier smells worried. Hey there, Lark, Xavier says, scratching the back of his head. So, funny story. Gina sort of insisted on sleeping in our room last night. Sorry about that, I answer blandly. That's my fault. Everyone else continues to the next class, Gina included, leaving the three of us in relative privacy. It's not your fault, Lark, Xavier insists. But is it okay if we ask what happened? Isn't it weird to claim it's not my fault if you don't know what happened? I mumble. Gina seemed really scared, Bentley murmurs. Is she okay? I suspect so, I say. Other than the fact that she's scared, I mean. And she's scared because? Xavier prompts. Because I decided to show her what was underneath my helmet, I explain. Xavier and Bentley share a look for a brief moment before turning back to me. You know, Lark, Xavier begins hesitantly. We're all Templar trainees here. We aren't well, Bentley and I certainly aren't going to judge you based on what you look like. And, forgive me if I'm being rude, but I've been picking up on some hints that you might not be totally human. Which is okay, Bentley promises. Really? I appreciate that, I answer, though I move to step past them both. But taking my helmet off last night proved to be a pretty big mistake. And I'm still not actually supposed to, so if you'll excuse me. Right. Sure, I get that, Xavier says, getting out of my way but immediately rushing up to walk in step beside me. I don't know, it's also just we know Gina has been really hard on you. And Gina is nice, like, she's a really cool person, but if she's going to escalate her little rivalry thing with you by telling rumors that maybe aren't totally true, we want to, get your input on that. Because otherwise that's not fair. I stop walking. Gina told you what she saw? I ask. Well, yes, and I think she said she was going to tell the others too, but the thing she said was kind of a bit crazy. And I mean, it's okay if it's true, I just I frown. I guess that's it, then. For some reason I never really thought about the fact that she might go and tell everyone what I am. That's kind of frustrating, but it's also kind of relieving. The secret is out, now. Open and free, where it belongs. Surely I won't get in any more trouble than I'm already in for now, right? Slowly, part of me panicking but most of me just too done to care about the consequences, I start undoing the clasps on my helmet. I owe you an apology, Bentley, I say. I pretended I didn't know you back when we introduced ourselves. That was wrong of me. His eyes are already starting to go wide with recognition before I pull the helmet off, but once I do, shaking out my eternally poofy helmet hair, his jaw just about hits the floor. I, also owe you an apology for biting out the back of your knee, I add hastily. And the claw wounds. Sorry. A continuation of Bentley's and now Xavier's intensely dumbfounded stares is my only response. I glance away, an invisible black blush blooming on my cheeks as I distract myself by stretching and flicking my sore ears. "Why, you're a lot taller," Bentley eventually blurts. I blink in surprise. Yes. "Wait, you two know each other?" Xavier asks. "We tried to kill each other a few times," I mutter. "Thankfully, I never succeeded." "So, you're really of Rothizo, then?" Xavier asks, awed. In lieu of a verbal response, I just flash a macabre grin at him, pulling my lips back as far as they'll go to reveal the full extent of my curved, black teeth. To my surprise, however, Xavier doesn't flinch away but instead leans towards me and lets out a low whistle. "Wow," he says, seeming legitimately impressed. "Them's some chompers." I have no idea how to respond to that. "Gosh, I can't believe you're the same Lark." Bentley chuckles to himself, scratching his cheek. "I feel kind of silly. We all thought Vita killed you." "You are both weirdly calm about this," I say. "Bentley, you saw what I did to people. You know what I am." "I mean, you already told us on day one," Xavier answers dismissively. "You joined the Templars to atone. So good for you." "Yeah, I mean, you're not eating anybody," Bentley agrees awkwardly. "And I forgive you for eating me that one time." "Really? I'm glad you're nice now." Thanks. "Does Bentley taste good?" Xavier stage whispers, sidling up next to me. I flinch, completely unprepared for that. "I what?" I sputter. "I mean, all humans taste good, I guess." Xavier mutters thoughtfully. "That's kind of a weird answer." It was a very weird question. "I'm just Xavier gestures vaguely. A simple yes or no would have sufficed. "But it's cool." "It's cool, you do you." The two of them actually enter the next class with me, acting like it's totally normal that a Rothizo wearing Templar armor is walking between them. Which I'm really, really thankful for, because I think it might be what prevents our law teacher from drawing a weapon. Our law instructor is a retired Templar, and if I recall correctly, that's a perfect memory joke. Her retirement was about a year ago, meaning that there's a high chance she knows people that have been killed by Rothizo. So I don't really blame her for giving me a mild death glare. Likewise, former soldier Harvey initially looks like he's about to prepare for a fight, but after a brief moment looking me over he seems to quickly calm down, returning to his default state of ignoring everyone. Gina stares with fear and incredulity, as she did last night, but Melik out of everyone gives me a gaze of the most open hatred. Honestly, it's nowhere near as bad as I feared. Nobody attacks or kicks me out, the teacher treats me with sharp professionalism despite her obvious dislike of me, and the classes are almost entirely boring because I've already read ahead. I even take my boots off halfway through class, although the instructor yells at me to quit distracting everyone after I start flexing my talons, to which I mutter an embarrassed apology. The boots are just not comfy. At all. I decide to carry them around along with my helmet rather than put them back on after class ends. "Holy shit, that's so cool," Xavier says, bounding right up to me. "Can you grab stuff with your feet?" "Language," I mumble. "And probably." My thumb toes are opposable, but I imagine that would make it very difficult to walk. "Are you okay, Lark?" Bentley asks. "I saw you were getting a lot of really mean looks." "Oh yeah, it's okay," I assure him awkwardly. "I'm used to it. What I'm not used to is getting fawned over." Even my friend Oon made a point not to talk very much about my inhuman features, and frankly I liked it that way. It's nice to not be hated, but having attention drawn to what I am makes me uncomfortable. The obvious solution is to put the armor back on, of course, but then I'd have to deal with the armor again. So I'll try to enjoy this while I can. "Trainee Lark," snaps a gruff voice. I turn and immediately stand to attention as I spot the Templar captain who barked at me. They are in full uniform, so I don't have the slightest idea who they are other than the fact that they don't smell familiar. Captain. I acknowledge. Yes, Captain. Don't press this any further, trainee, the captain orders, then walks off. Ha. I really expected there to be more consequences than that. What you have been told to do and what you will be allowed to do are two different things. Lady Vesuvius was right, I mutter. Wait, you've talked to Penelope? Bentley asks excitedly. She was on my hunter team. I stare at him blankly for a couple seconds, trying to figure out if he's serious. I know, I eventually supply. I nearly murdered the woman, for crying out loud. He blinks, then scratches his cheek with embarrassment. Oh yeah, he says. Sorry, it's really easy to forget. You're just so different now. It's like you're a completely new person. I flinch, pressing my ears flat. I really? I ask quietly. Oh yeah, definitely. Bentley confirms, nodding jovially. Like before you were all Naya haha. I'm going to lead you into web traps and eat you. Humans are tasty, but now you're all shy and quiet and polite all the time. It's nice. You're not scary at all. I glance down at the floor, shaking slightly as I try to fight against the tears I feel welling up behind my eyes. I want to deny it, tell him no, I'm the same as I always was. I'm still that malevolent creature that enjoys the hunt and the taste of blood. I still feel that way, the need to eat and kill singing in my bones. The things I do to make me look like a person, it's nothing but an act. I need to tell him, to make sure he knows it so he won't ever let his guard down and get hurt. Thank you, is all I actually say. His words make me too happy to articulate anything else. Yeah, he answers cheerfully, all joy and goofy grins. I can't help it, I smile back. As wide as I can without opening my lips. The tears start to flow then, but I no longer care. Xavier gives Bentley a friendly punch in the shoulder, wiggling his eyebrows as the three of us continue on to our ethics class. The instructor gives me an odd look as we enter, but he seems more surprised than anything. Melik and Gina break off from a hushed conversation to glower at me. You boys better not be making anyone cry, the ethics instructor chides. And no. I manage to choke out. No, it's good. He watches me carefully as we all head to our seats, eventually giving me a curt nod and starting the lecture as normal. At our magic lesson, the instructor takes almost too keen an interest in me, like a mix of all my least favorite parts of Lady Vesuvius and Xavier's attention, but it's mostly ignorable as I spend the entirety of the class trying and failing to learn to channel. I passed the cancel command test a few days ago, but I've been stonewalled at the supposedly easy step. Which is okay, I suppose. I'm sure I'll figure it out eventually. It's a very short day today, so it's dark by the time classes are over. It's not really a big deal, though. The entire barracks is lit with temporary kinemancy inscriptions, casting an eerily pale light over everything that's more than enough to see by. Although, I suppose for all I know it's dark to humans, I would be able to see just fine without any lights at all. I meander a bit before returning to my room, following Bentley and Xavier as they chatter with each other. I'm not really part of the conversation, but it's still nice to be there, to feel like I'm with them without being unwanted. Eventually, however, I have to break away to retrieve my package of mice and gulp them down in the bathroom. Afterwards I return to my room, intending to torpor until classes start tomorrow. To my surprise, however, when I open the door I feel that same magical tingle I did at Galdra's front door. Not as powerful, but certainly dangerous. My pulse rises, my quills twitch, my spinnerets flex. Someone has laid a trap for me. Or for Gina, I suppose, but that seems less likely. I should still make sure she doesn't walk into it, though, so I opt to stand and wait outside the doorway until someone walks by. It's possible that Gina will refuse to return to our room today as well, but if I don't see anyone for an hour I suppose I'll just curl up and torpor outside the room. Thankfully, it's only 10 minutes before Gina pokes her head around the far end of the hallway and scowls at me. "Hello, Gina," I greet her. "I think there's a magic trap here, so I wanted to make sure you didn't run into it." She stares at me for a while. I stare back. "You set the trap, didn't you?" I eventually ask. "I don't want to hurt you," I answer flatly. Even if she is making an incredibly strong case for it. "Well, we want to hurt you," a male voice insists. It's Melik. He steps into the hall as well, glowering furiously at me. "I have had more than enough monsters pretending to be people in my life," he snarls. "Your face looks very human, after all, and Vrothizo look like whatever things they managed to eat alive. You do not deserve to be here." I shrug lightly. I agree with him, but it's not my call. The gesture only seems to make him narrow his eyes further, though. "I'm not going to fight," I say simply. "I don't want to hurt any of you." "You should, though," says yet another new voice, this time from behind me. Harvey walks into the hall from behind me, and now I'm suddenly surrounded. I don't know much about Harvey, as he seems content to make himself mostly forgettable. The quiet older man was apparently a tactical officer before joining the Templars, whatever that means. He doesn't seem aggressive, at least, but I'm not really sure what he's talking about. I should want to hurt them? I ask him incredulously. "No, of course not," he grunts back. "You should fight. You really think you'll never be expected to fight someone as a Templar? That's half our job. If you keep half-assing the combat classes, you won't pass." "I don't," he answers flatly. "But unfortunately it's an adult's job to oversee squabbles between children." "No, feel free to kick each other's asses," Harvey grunts. "Just do it in the courtyard, not the hallway. If you stay here you'll break a lot more than each other." He starts walking in that direction, and I start to follow without really thinking about it. What I am thinking about are his words: fighting is half a Templar's job. It won't just be against monsters. It will be against criminals, soldiers, and if I'm to get any meaningful practice in each other. "Don't worry too much," Harvey mutters quietly to me. "They're both angry, but neither of them are dumb enough to actually try to kill you. And if they are, I'll stop them before it goes too far." I shrug. "That's not really something I'm worried about," I answer. He smirks, just the slightest bit. "Then I'll stop you." I size him up, taking in the scent of his strength. He's pretty tough, I guess. A lot stronger than most people, anyway, but there's also only one of him. If I lose control and actually try to kill him, I doubt it would be that difficult. The sentiment is appreciated, I say non-committally. Unlike the rest of the barracks, the courtyard is mostly dark. Melik and Gina follow behind me as I walk out towards the center of it, trying to decide what to do. We stop 20 feet apart from each other, give or take. Gina has a sword at her hip, and not one of the practice swords we were using earlier today. A real chitin blade. Melik, on the other hand, just pulls out a small container and opens the lid. To my surprise, some kind of shiny, reflective powder floats out of it and starts moving around him in the arcane patterns. Whenever the strange dust clumps together in a certain way, I feel the telltale tingle of another trap buzzing into existence somewhere behind me in the courtyard. That's so interesting. I've never seen anyone cast spells like that. "So, how are we doing this?" I ask. "If you're both really this set on sparring." "It's not a spar," Melik sneers. "We are fighting a monster. Nothing else." I tilt my head. "Hunters versus monsters all over again, huh?" "Sure," I say. "I'll take the first turn playing as the monster." "Hey, Gina." I ask slowly as Melik continues to set up more traps on the battlefield. "I was wondering. Are you going to tell Fulvia that I'm alive?" She flinches, looking away. I haven't decided, she grunts. It'll hurt her to know. But she deserves to know. Yeah, I agree. Sorry to put you in that position. Gina gives me a calculating look, apparently not quite sure what to make of that. Let's just make it a moot point, Melik mutters. I don't really understand why you're here, I admit to Melik. Do you want to beat me up? To kill me? Do I need a reason to hate Vrothizo? He counters. Well, no, I admit. I also hate Vrothizo. I've killed nearly 200 of them, and every few days I visit First Lady Vesuvius and let her cut me up so she can learn how to kill us better. And I do it because we're all terrible, and we deserve to die. I guess that's fair, I allow. Unfortunately, I'm also a coward. I've never actually succeeded at committing suicide. Everyone seems to bristle at that, as if I said something deeply shocking. For some reason, I find that funny. Wait, this is a surprise to you? I laugh. Really? Weren't you all born with empathy? Yes, I'm a monster. You don't have to remind me. I robbed every shred of humanity I have with my teeth, and now I'm just expected to live with it. I drop my helmet and boots as I rant, peeling off my gloves. They want a monster. I'll show them one. Soon I'm gratefully flexing my black-clawed hands, removing my torso armor, and rolling my sore extra shoulders. My quills extend up through the already shredded padded shirt I wear underneath the plate, and letting me reveal the full extent of what I really am to my former prey. I didn't ask to be chucked off of Hive Rock. I didn't ask to hatch, or to get tossed into a cannibalistic free-for-all seconds after. I never asked to run into hunters, or to be smart enough to keep them alive. I never asked to learn what love is after it was already too late. I would gladly let you kill me if any of you had a chance of actually succeeding. But no, if I just sit back and let you flail around at me, it's more likely you'll only deal enough damage to make my body decide it has to bite back. Oh, is that it? Gina sneers. It's our fault if you happen to take a little nibble. No, I snap. It's my fault. My responsibility. But I don't know the right thing to do here. So if you really want to fight, if you really want to press this, then the best I can manage is to take Lady Vesuvius' advice on the matter. I lean over, crouching low, the claws of my talons digging deep into the hard-packed dirt of the courtyard. Establish dominance, I quote. Exploding forward, I keep my body tucked in low as I leap towards them faster than the air can chase me. Multiple magical traps are in my way and I simply let them activate, passing over them so fast that most of them miss me entirely. The ones that do hit me singe my talons and ankles, raw mana tearing into them and burning me from the inside. None of it stops me. Gina swings her blade towards me, timing the strike to connect just as I get in range, but with one hand I bat the blade out of the way, snapping it in half immediately. The edge sinks into my fingers, carving a deep gash into my hand but failing to cut bone. With two other arms I strike at Gina and Melik simultaneously, as they had the poor sense to stand close enough to each other to allow it. I dig my talons back into the earth, gouging huge tracks into the ground to slow myself down before impact. With my fingers carefully, so I don't claw them, I place a hand on each of their chests, cushioning the blow with my arms rather than adding force to it. Still, I feel ribs crunch, and by the end of my movement I've sent them both sprawling across the courtyard, each crashing hard on the ground before rolling to a stop. The crack of furious wind then catches up, shaking the whole barracks as it thunders past. Gina and Melik are sprayed with stones as I skid to a stop, my toes burning. Behind me, the ground where I started my leap is utterly shredded, a wave of dirt having slammed into the building behind me. The whole pell-mell certainly brings people running, and if not for the fact that I still had my tassets and greaves on I probably would have been assumed to be a wild Vrothizo and cut down. Suffice to say, my superiors are furious with me. With Harvey insisting that he isn't the one who caused the Kinemancy explosion, I start getting earful after earful. It goes on for over an hour. Don't fight outside of class, don't break bones, don't cause property damage, you should know better, we were promised you had more self-control. It mostly washes over me. I just spend the whole time clutching my bandaged fingers and ignoring that little voice in my head that reminds me I'm still bleeding, so I should kill them all. Humans are fragile, after all. Without Galdra to stop me, I could do it. I am both confused and frustrated by the sheer number of people that decided to follow me out of the prison. I feel like I was pretty unambiguous with both the fact that I intended to be a complete dictator to anyone that stuck around, and that everyone is welcome to just leave. At the very least I was expecting the former prison staff to take me up on that, as well as most of the prisoners. Turns out this is not the case. The entire cooking and cleaning staff is following me. I guess now that I think about it, it does make sense for most people to want to stick together when we are this far away from the city. The forest is dangerous, and all that. At least for other people. I take a deep breath of fresh air, because not even feeling the movement of my disgusting wet flesh sack can put a damper on the smell of freedom. Thanks for coming to break me out, you two, I tell Matteo and Netta. The three of us are currently patrolling the forest, mainly because the huge group on the road has been getting a little stuffy for me. It's uncomfortable to suddenly go from living in a cell alone for 2 years to being constantly feeling the rapt attention of dozens of people. I don't like it. Of course, Vita, Netta says, nodding what remains of her head at me. It's mostly skull now, with skin only from the chin down. There's no way we'd let you rot there, Matteo hisses playfully, coiling quickly around me once before darting away. We owe you our lives, after all, Netta agrees. That and we love you, Matteo adds. We are so happy to have you back. Matteo's body, being mostly chitin, seems to be faring a lot better after 2 years of undeath. He has a lot more unhealed battle damage, though, holes and cracks, a missing mouth finger or two. I'm kind of surprised Penelope still hasn't worked out a solution to that whole mind control thing, I admit. Netta and Matteo share a worried glance that I don't quite understand, but I decide not to press the matter. It's just nice having revenants around again. And dregs, for that matter. I have a fun little collection of zombies around me, and it feels great. Unfortunately, I've just about scared off everything else in this part of the forest, so it's time for us to return to herding cats on the road. Speaking of Penelope, Netta says, I suspect it'll be difficult to sneak you into the city, but we have a secret spot in the forest that we meet up at pretty regularly. I suspect that's where she'll check for you. I guess that works, yeah, I allow, shrugging. I was hoping to just sneak back into Skyhope, but there's no way I can do that with dozens of people following me. It might also be difficult because you have 3 eyes and a tentacle, Matteo points out. 4 eyes and counting, actually, I grunt. There's one on my thigh, and I think I feel another growing just above my hip. A thigh eye doesn't sound very useful, Netta comments. It's really not. So are you like, always? It has an eyelid, thankfully, I reassure her. Oh. Good. The 3 of us make it back to the road, where Altrix, Lynn, and Jeremiah are keeping the peace among our captured Templars, though it's mostly Altrix. Apparently her talent just lets her look at people and make them balloon into a horrible flesh blob, which is just incredibly disgusting. I saw her use it on a bird, and I can't imagine how freaky it would be on a person. Apparently she can use the exact same talent to heal people, but I don't know if I'm super keen on letting her try. Welcome back, work of art, whichever Altrix is currently in charge says to me. Can you just call me Vita? I ask her. It would be my pleasure, Vita, she agrees. Welcome back, kiddo. Lynn says, scooping me up in a brief hug. Can you also just call me Vita? Come on, kiddo, I have 2 whole years of taunting to catch up on. Well, in that case I hope you've been taking care of Vitamin, Grandma, I counter. Oof. Such a cruel daughter I have. Woe is me. Lynn whines. But yeah, Actually, she's been doing really well. She's with our, benefactor. I nod, having assumed as much. Penelope no doubt figured out whatever animancy nonsense is necessary to feed my revenants, because she's smart and cool. And since Lynn is being careful not to say her name where anyone can hear, I assume she's currently in good standing over at Skyhope and hoping to stay that way, which is interesting. Also interesting are Jeremiah and Jelisaveta, who are talking with each other. By the way they awkwardly and suddenly stop their conversation as I approach, I assume it was about me. Plotting with other animancers already, Jelly? I ask, smirking at her. We'll make a heretic out of you yet. That's not, Jalissa starts, but then cuts herself off and sighs. Hello, Vita. I'd prefer if you didn't make a game out of taunting me on top of everything else. It's hardly heresy to have a polite conversation with someone who disagrees with what we believe. You should know that. Your co-workers certainly fooled me, I respond dryly. You should know that. How are the sleds, Jeremiah? Functional enough, he answers, nodding politely. I find myself rather humbled, to be honest. You craft undead as quickly and easily as you breathe, and the articulation of motion is almost lifelike. I don't know why I bothered making my own. A menagerie of undead creatures carry our supplies down the road, which is of course exactly as conspicuous as it sounds. These roads are not very well traveled, however, and my sensory range drastically outstrips how far anyone here can see. We've only encountered one other group of travelers, and it wasn't difficult to get everyone off the road and hidden before they got close. Well, you had to learn all this the hard way, I reassure him. I'm just kind of like this. It's not a bad sort of humbling, Jeremiah dismisses. It was silly of me to consider myself skilled. I clearly have a long way to go. And speaking of a long way to go, is it true that our goal is Skyhope? Jalissa asks. No, it isn't, I inform her with the confidence of a person who didn't just decide that a couple minutes ago. Just somewhere nearby. HRM, Jalissa hums. Have you decided what you're going to do with the people you captured? No, I admit. You and Lynn were right, though. Torturing them back, it's not productive. I'm torn between just letting them go when we get somewhere safe, or killing them and getting it over with. I'm obviously going to encourage you to release them, Jalissa says. Obviously, I snort. But why should I? It's the right thing to do, Jalissa answers simply. According to who? I ask. It's nice, sure. And I respect that. I respect you because you show kindness and decency when no one else does. But are the other Templars ever going to respect me? Are they going to forgive me and leave me alone if I show them mercy? Or will every one of them I release just turn around and immediately try to stab me? Jalissa chews her lip. If you only show kindness when it benefits you, is it really kindness at all, she asks. If I show kindness even when it will bite me in the ass, how long will it be until it kills me? I counter. Is it really hypocritical to only show kindness to people that won't abuse it? Shit, Vita, you're a lot more a lot more wordy than I remember, Lynn mentions. Well, the thing about being imprisoned by Templars is that you end up listening to a lot of lectures on morality, I grunt. And they're all pretty much the same. I have practice. I think the essence of goodness is being willing to let yourself be hurt for the sake of what's right, Jalissa continues, ignoring the aside. Because to me, doing the right thing is more important than personal gain. But you're not like that anymore, Vita, Jalissa insists. You're the most powerful person here. It's not about the reward, Jalissa says quietly. I glower at her a bit as she looks away awkwardly, worry and doubt in her soul. You don't think that's very likely, do you? I realize. You think they're just going to keep coming for me? Most likely, she admits. I'd figured as much, but it still sucks to hear. If you let us go, I can try to convince them to leave you alone, Jalissa says. I mean, you'd have to make a few promises, probably, but... And that's not the only soul I feel with her. A High Templar I don't recognize is carried along with her by her power, and though I've never felt it before, I suspect I can put a name to the soul. It feels like a massive glass sphere, the center of which glows with that warm radiance I love so much in Lynn and Jalissa's souls, but between that glow and the edge of the glass flash countless reflections, each warped by the sphere. Images of landscapes flying by, bulbous and warped, feel less like a natural part of the soul and more like information it is constantly pulling inside, actual reflections of views that the talent is constantly streaming into the mind of its wielder. Damn, my sensory range is probably measurable in miles now. Everyone into the forest. I order. Now. This way. Immediately I'm assaulted with feelings of panic and confusion, but I refuse to elaborate and just keep yelling at people until they obey. This is my favorite part of being in charge. We cut a path perpendicular from the road, heading deeper and deeper into the forest as fast as possible as I try to rack my brain about how to survive fighting Kasha and Braum again. I'm a lot stronger than I was, sure, but there's still very little I can do about someone forming a vacuum around my face. Maybe I can stop Kasha from using that spell with how much more mana I can draw out from myself at once, but maybe I can't, so that's not really a plan. Ideally we'll move fast enough to avoid Braum's attention, but I don't actually have any idea what his range is compared to mine beyond the fact that it's more than 1,000 yards. He could spot us in seconds or he could spot us in an hour, I really have no clue. But even if we end up well outside his range, the fact that several dozen people just trudged off the road with sleds and entered the forest is going to be difficult to miss. Will they ignore us and just continue towards Site 4, or will they turn to investigate? Plans start forming in my mind, but as usual all of the best ones are far from kind. If we leave the staff behind and bring the supplies, the High Templars will have to choose between leaving them to die in the forest and continuing to chase us. That will definitely slow them down at the very least. Likewise, I can use the Templar prisoners as hostages to get the High Templars to back down. I could also maybe lie to them and claim that ours hasn't already escaped, as he might be scary enough to be a bigger priority than I am. Which leaves me the problem of dealing with a fight again. I'm not super worried about Braum, he's dangerous, sure, but I can just pop his illusions. It's Kasha that I have no idea what to do about. 2 years ago she opened the fight by hitting me with a wind projectile from over 1,000 yards away, and I seriously doubt her skills have faded since then. There's basically nothing I can do to someone that fights from that distance. I could maybe fill a soul with mana and throw it at her, but it took me 5 Templar-sized souls bursting with my essence to create a null magic zone covering a 60-foot drop. I can't even get close to making her fall over 1,000 yards. My only hope is for her to underestimate me and willingly put herself in range, and that's not even kind of a strategy. Hey, this is quite a pace we're setting, Vita, Lynn says with a bit of false cheerfulness. I'm not sure how long the non-combatants can keep this up. I acknowledge. Whatcha thinkin' about, kiddo? You wouldn't happen to have any ideas on how to kill Kasha the Maelstrom, would you? I could target her with my talent fairly easily, but I doubt I will be able to affect her, Altrix reports, and then I remember I have a bunch of other people here that also hate Templars. Alright, you have any ideas, Jeremiah? I ask. Undead avians would be a minor distraction at best, Jeremiah says. Anything physical she's going to be able to bat aside, so long-range anima attacks would probably be ideal. I know a few, but I doubt they will be able to do much to a High Templar. Well, prepare them anyway, I order. And let's see if you can teach them to me if we have time. Jeremiah pauses, giving me a considering look before nodding slightly. It would be my pleasure, he lies. I frown at him. What was that about? Let's see, he doesn't want to share what he knows and he doesn't particularly like me personally. However, he probably believes that if he denies my requests I will just kill him and then make him teach me anyway. It's not urgent, you don't have to if you don't feel like it, I tell him. Just don't lie to me again. He raises an eyebrow, and nods. What about you, to kill from above? Do you even know who Kasha the Maelstrom is? The bug man from Hive Rock has been following me around for reasons I suspect only he knows. He's not a very talkative guy, but I figure maybe somehow he knows a thing or two about people who kill from above. I am aware of the human known as Kasha the Maelstrom. I have been developing a combat plan for fighting this threat during the entirety of my stay in prison. Oh hey, that sounds promising. Okay, lay it on us, dude. I encourage. What's your murder plan? I do not have one. I am incapable of achieving victory in any standard combat scenario. Right, of course. I rub my temple eye in exasperation. Okay, who's next then? Jalissa? Any ideas? You want me to give you advice on how to kill a High Templar? Jalissa asks me incredulously. I mean, if you wouldn't mind. I mind. I scowl at her. Fine, be that way. Okay then, I guess we are starting operation. Hope really hard that they just don't notice us and fly past, I say. Do you think you can all handle that one? And somehow, this actually works. It's not long until Braum and Kasha reach the point where we veered off the road, and they definitely notice something is amiss. Yet they keep flying anyway, ignoring us and continuing towards Site 4. I mutter to myself. I actually got lucky for once. I suspect they seek the artist, Altrix informs me placidly. You may be dangerous and hated, but you are but the epilogue in the book of horror he wrote. From what he told me, he more or less made me by accident, I grumble. But I don't remember. I don't remember him, I don't remember you, I don't remember anything. 2/3 of Altrix's soul twitch in pain as I say that, so I nod apologetically at her. Sorry. I can tell you care about me, but the best I can do is let you stay with me and make new memories. Smashed mine, I guess. But honestly, your feelings on the matter are the biggest evidence to me that you and ours aren't lying. Capita believes it, you believe it, he believes it. I guess I have to face the facts and accept I'm some kind of weird baby mistwatcher thing. I sigh, raising my arm so I can stare at my flesh tentacle as I idly flick and curl it without really thinking. It's just annoying, I continue, because I really don't like the mistwatcher. The idea that I'll eventually mutate into some big tentacle flesh blob is not very appealing. I thought you liked your tentacles, Lynn says, in the same way a mother might be surprised that their child doesn't like their haircut. This is not a tentacle, I complain, pointing at the thing growing out of my elbow. It's a gross, superficially tentacle-shaped mockery of flesh. It doesn't move right, it doesn't feel right, it's awful. I've always been taught that tentacles are symbols of the divine, Jalissa says solemnly. I snort. Then why aren't you kneeling? I quip, wiggling a physical and spiritual tentacle in front of her face. Because false use of a divine symbol is blasphemy, Jalissa smirks. Her face falls, and I decide I'm done talking for now. It's still a long way to our destination, and I should collect as many undead as possible so that none of the living get hurt. The rest of the trip is almost entirely uneventful. Over the next couple days we trudge through dense forest, following Netta and Mateo's directions as I slowly gather an army of a few hundred dregs and risen. I just lose myself in the collection process, trying to ignore the unwelcome temptation to let my consciousness leave my body and slip within my soul. For obvious reasons I can't do that, and that knowledge makes some horrible part of me long to still be in a prison cell. It's like I'm addicted to not being myself. Eventually, Netta and Mateo declare that we are close enough and request that I make a temporary camp for everyone before they lead me to the place where they meet Penelope. I guess they have been instructed to keep it secret from everyone else, which is perfectly understandable. With Altrix, Manus, and a literal army of undead there to keep the peace, I'm not super worried about leaving everyone else alone. They take Lynn and I to a small clearing a few hours away, and then just sit down. So how does this work? I ask. We wait, Netta grunts. For how long? Sometimes days, Mateo hisses. Your girlfriend is not well known for being predictable. Then what? I press. She just appears. Yep, Netta confirms. Oh. I was kidding, but all right. I sit down as well, waiting for who knows how long to see one of the few people I love for the first time in years. It's very boring. Wanna prank her? Lynn asks. It's 3 hours later when I suddenly feel a powerful mana signature in the center of the clearing. I hunch down deeper into the bushes, hiding in wait of my prey. Then, suddenly, she's here, and it takes every ounce of my self-control to remain still. She's here. That soul of beautiful pink bubbles, pulsing and alive, hidden partly under an artificial shell. Her soul is bigger since last I saw it, but the shell is smaller and she's ever more beautiful because of it. Penelope has always had a sense for combining practicality and style, but her clothes now lean more towards the former. Heavy, padded clothing armors her body, teasing at her curves with its tight fit. Her hair is braided all the way down past her waist, elegantly woven in a pattern I could never even imagine learning. Her soul stirs as she looks around, and I feel mana rapidly shaping itself inside her despite her motionless hands. Lynn steps out in front of her, and Penelope's focus snaps on the woman immediately. Lynn, Penelope says curtly, her soul singing stress and impatience. What happened? Sorry, Lady Vesuvius, my mother mutters. We got really damn close, but we couldn't break her out. They've still got her. An aching fury flows through Penelope and is swiftly murdered, replaced by cold calculation. I feel her take in the world around her, analyze information, and start forming a plan, all while efficiently coming to a swift conclusion about the current conversation. You're lying, Penelope says, blunt irritation pouring out of her voice. There's a pause, and then her eyes widen as she catches up to her own thoughts. You're lying, she repeats excitedly. And that is the moment I burst out of the bushes and scoop her up into a hug. Her eyes lock onto mine immediately. Holy shit, they're golden now, and she squeals with delight as I spin her around, laughing with the sheer jubilance of finally being able to see her again. I'm free. I'm free. Even with the whole world against me, she found me and set me free. Vita, Penelope breathes, cupping her hands around my cheeks as if I might spill through them like water. Penelope, I respond, reaching out with a real tentacle, and feeling an overwhelming surge of joy and relief when it makes contact. Next thing I know, I've wrapped us both up entirely, hundreds of tendrils exploding out of my core and squeezing us together in a cocoon. I made it. I actually made it. I made it home. For a beautiful moment, it's just the two of us, squeezing each other with all our might because, despite all our fears, we actually can. We're here, together again. I'm curled all around her, tentacles twisting around every inch of her body as I hold her close, Roscoe nestled between my physical form and hers. Something stirs inside her and her soul pulls for mana, but the Watcher cannot reach her here. Surrounded by my soul, she is cut off. I offer her myself instead, releasing my own mana around her, and the grand recesses of her being gladly pull me in. Greedy for power as she is, she sucks up more and more of me, but I hardly mind. Dancing around the inside of her spirit, I press myself lovingly along the impossibly complex pathways within, a nuzzle here, a slight squeeze there. I get to cuddle her from inside and out. There's love for me in here, and I get to bask in it directly, warming me from all sides. Penelope immediately quirks a confused eyebrow, startled by new and confusing sensations. Is this you? She whispers. MMHRM, I confirm, my face nuzzled too far into her shoulder to articulate further. It's so different, she murmurs. So very different. Pleasant, not dangerous. Easier. Channeling isn't like this. Watcher mana doesn't like to be channeled, I mutter, slightly annoyed to be talking about it rather than just basking in it. I like it. As long as it's you. It's odd, Penelope remarks. But good. Like being hugged from the inside. I am hugging from the inside, I mumble. Snuggling up. You're my soul blankie. She chuckles, running her hand over my barely fuzzy scalp. I bet I could hold a lot more of your mana in me than Watcher mana, if you aren't fighting me. More maximum power. I sigh, giving up on the hope for more silent cuddles. That sounds nice. Just don't cause a mana annihilation inside your soul. That'd be bad, Proly. Ah, yes, I suppose that's a downside, she agrees, tracing a finger around the eye on my temple. When did you grow this? Dunno, I grumble. I kind of lost track of time. A few months ago, I think. There's one on my thigh, too. And my arm tentacle ugh. Can you get rid of it all? Certainly, she agrees. Though if that means you aren't growing these things on purpose, well, that's concerning. We should focus effort into looking into why that's happening first. I grunt in agreement. I guess that sounds like a good idea. What about your eyes? I ask, changing the subject. I can't imagine they're anything but intentional. Do you like them? Penelope preens. Yellow is probably my least favorite color, I answer honestly. Oops, disappointment fills her immediately. But, it's never been important to me how you look, I quickly remind her, scooping her up into a tentacular Princess Carrie. And your soul has gotten much prettier since I last saw you. The mask is starting to come off. If, that's why the eyes are like they are, please keep them. Penelope's eyebrows raise, a smile returning to her lips. Watcher's eyes, Vita, was that a social skill you just used, she taunts. Prison really has changed you. I wince. I guess so, I admit. I didn't have much to do other than watch people and massage my ocean. It's really good to be back. Penelope leans into me, smirking slightly. It's so surreal, being here with her. She's different, but not as much as I'd feared. I hate that the vast majority of the time she's been my girlfriend, I haven't even been able to talk to her. Yet still. Go ahead and brag, I tell her. I know you want to. Oh, well, she hums. If you insist. She languidly extracts herself from my arms, taking a dramatic pause for effect as a grin splits her face, revealing an impressive pair of fangs. Lynn awkwardly clears her throat. Sorry, Lady Vesuvius, you two are like super incredibly cute and all, but I gotta protest that one. One thing kind of went very wrong. Penelope sighs, extremely put out by having her monologue interrupted, but she waves Lynn to continue. Go on then, what's the bad news, she grumbles. Well, Vita kinda sort of maybe let ours out of jail, too, Lynn continues quickly. She what? Penelope shrieks. Oh yeah, that guy, I nod agreeably. He's apparently kind of my dad, or something. He's what? And a splice was my mom, I guess. You know, before I was an orphan and eventually got a better mom. Ah, Lynn coos. Where is ours now? Penelope demands. No idea, I shrug. He killed himself and flew away. Shit, she hisses. Would you be able to recognize him if you see him again? Of course. Well. Good, I suppose, Penelope grumbles. And how long is your sensory range now? No idea, I answer. Miles, at least. I think it improved even more after I started eating metal. Watcher's eyes, I forgot what it was like being around you, Penelope laments, pinching the bridge of her nose. Well, I'll need you to vet everyone important, then. And I suppose I'll just need to take it on good faith that you aren't compromised. Skyhope is probably fine, I say. If I were ours, the absolute last place I'd want to go is anywhere near the Inquisition. He was captured for 15 years. I'd want dozens of countermeasures before getting close to anywhere with Templars again. And yet, you're here, Penelope points out sardonically. Well, yeah, I say. You and my family are here. She chuckles, shaking her head. I missed you so damn much, Vita, she says. Now give me a moment, I'll need a while to cast this teleportation spell to get us back. Then we'll take our leave, I think, Netta says. Unless you need anything, Vita. No, I'm good, I confirm, grinning and walking over to give both hunter revenants a hug. Thanks so much for getting me out of there, you two. It was truly our pleasure, Mateo hisses, curling around me and giving me a light squeeze back. Is it cool if I split to go check in on the family? Give them the good news? Lynn asks. Of course, Penelope nods. Just do not be seen. Yes ma'am, Lynn answers with a mock salute, then dashes away toward Skyhope. Ha, I mutter. I figured Lynn would never even think about traveling the forest alone. I've given your mother extensive modifications, Penelope answers, shrugging. She's effectively immune to poison and disease, has a bone structure strong enough to stop nearly any attack, and can regenerate a limb in under a 10 day if she eats enough. Add that to being naturally fast enough to escape any threat, and well, she's rather bolder now. Ha, I say. Neat. I assume you've done all that to yourself, too? She smirks. Plus a bit more, yes. Now if you'd kindly direct me a bit more mana, I should be able to safely consume it all for this teleportation spell. Oh yeah, I nod. Sure. Tell me when to stop. About 15 minutes later, Penelope grabs my hand and I'm suddenly somewhere else. I stagger, overwhelmed by such an oppressive silence. There are 6 people here, counting myself. Then, well over what must be a mile away, I feel souls on my periphery. But in between, hardly anything but worms and dirt. The intense quiet that's normally below me is now everywhere. Above, below, around it's so lifeless. We're very far underground, I whisper, because for some reason it just feels right to be quiet. Penelope confirms happily. Welcome to my humble abode. And welcome home to you, Lady Vesuvius, a disturbingly familiar voice coos. I begin, watching Penelope go beet red beside me. What is this? A mistake, Penelope hisses. I am Nugas, the me clone responds happily. You must be Vita. It is so wonderful to finally meet you. Wow, I manage. You got me, Penelope. I have no idea whether to be disgusted, creeped out, or flattered. I would be so very pleased if you chose to be flattered, Lady Vita. Nugas beams. You turned someone into a sexy clone of me in a moment of weakness? Months of weakness, then, Penelope hisses, brimming with shame. I lost hope. I was angry. So I poured my research into our dedicated animancy test subject. Something poetic, desperate, and cruel. I don't think you've been cruel, Lady Vesuvius, my copy reassures her. Of course not, Penelope grumbles back. You don't think anything I didn't make you to think. For the first time, the ghost of my face frowns. Well, perhaps those words were cruel, Nugas responds. Can we back up for a moment? I ask. Penelope, when you say, our dedicated animancy test subject, do you mean? Yes, Penelope grunts. This used to be the man Sky assigned to guard your family. The one that let Angelion die. I raise my eyebrows at her, though the eye on my temple twists to glare at Nugas. This is him. No, she feels completely different. Not the least because she strongly considers herself a she. The thug didn't. It's completely unrecognizable as the source soul in so many ways. I'm leaning towards being disgusted now, I admit. It was meant to be a punishment for him, Penelope mumbles miserably. I blink at her. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Penelope, if you hate this person so much, why don't you just change them back? I ask. If I may be permitted to answer that, please. Nugas asks demurely. Penelope just looks away, which I assume she interprets as permission to continue. I remember the man I was made from, Nugas tells me. I remember him sobbing as my body shrunk and softened. I remember screaming as she cut him out of me, flaying his joy and hate until they were tender enough to mold. Lady Vesuvius killed him so that I could grow from his corpse. I do not wish to die the same way. I implore you, Lady Vita, to not consider us the same. He was a foul, selfish, and evil man. He hated himself, and I hate him even more than that. I am not him. We are not the same. I regard her, surprised by the conviction in her words, the desperate need to make me understand. And I suppose I do. This isn't the man that let Angelion die. I could never have recognized her soul as such. Which just makes this entire situation even freakier, really. I expected Penelope to figure out a lot of animancy, but not this much. Okay, I acknowledge. I guess it's nice to meet you, Nugas. She beams, and I step past her, thinking. My own revenants never freaked me out like this. Is it just because they're mine? Can I get you anything for you and your guest, Lady Vesuvius? Nugas asks. No, Nugas, Penelope sighs, every word out of my copy's mouth sending fresh sparks of embarrassment through her. Thank you. Of course, Lady Vesuvius. Nugas bows slightly, her pure blue eyes gleaming. Penelope catches up with me, face carefully blank as she tries to master her emotions. Sorry about that, Penelope mumbles. I was so excited about your return and so busy with my work I never got around to changing her face. Oh, that's fine, I dismiss. She likes it more than I ever did. She can keep it. Penelope grunts, and I pick up a general dissatisfaction with that answer which links to her embarrassment. You didn't want me to know, did you? I press. Why would I want anyone to know? Penelope counters. She's convenient to have around, I won't deny that. But she's still a mistake. I nod slowly. At what point did you start to regret it? I ask. Penelope glowers at me, so I lean over and give her a side hug. She sighs. I squeeze her shoulder. Well, I'm really glad your parents made you, I reassure her. So maybe someone will be happy you made Nugas someday. Penelope smirks. But not you, and not today. Penelope cackles, finally shrugging off most of her foul mood. I've missed your bluntness, she sighs. But yes, that's Nugas. I'm sorry that the first person you meet at my place had to be her rather than your daughter. That's okay. It's been 2 years, I can wait 5 minutes to let you air your dirty laundry. Penelope flinches. She is a person, Vita, she says softly. Try not to forget that, and try not to let me forget again either. I'm trying to learn to embrace who I am, but well, there's accepting my flaws and then there's Nugas. Really, Penelope, it's fine, I reassure her. She's freaky but I do that kind of thing all the time. I'm not going to be a hypocrite about it. Excuse me, did I hear something about dirty laundry? Nugas asks, poking her head into the hallway. Is there something I should clean? You do look rather ripe, Lady Vita. No, Nugas, I was calling you Penelope's dirty laundry, I clarify. Watcher's eyes, stop that. Penelope snaps, blushing furiously. Nugas just cackles and re-enters the room she popped out of. She's just going to be even more incorrigible now that you're here, isn't she? Penelope groans. It's so weird seeing myself nearly naked all the time, I agree. You did great work on her eyes, though. Thanks, I suppose, Penelope grunts. Eventually, we walk all the way to the room where I sense Vitamin. She's sitting down, facing away from the door in a meditative stance. Energy flows through the strands of anima running within her tiny child body, pulsing and concentrating and dancing about with clear intent. It's fascinating to watch. What's it for, I wonder? Normally, the amount of power in each soul strand is pretty much equal, but Vitamin is removing energy from some parts of her body to empower others, then moving it back, then moving it somewhere else. She's training to optimize her strength wherever it happens to be needed, probably. Either way, I break her focus quite thoroughly when I lean down and give her a big hug from behind. Guess who? I ask. Hey Nugas, she answers, turning her head towards me. What's you with Haya? Her sentence transitions directly into excited screaming, quickly twisting all the way around so she can squeeze me back. I lift her up into the air, grinning as she squeals. Mom! Aya, Mom, is it really you? You're back. You're back, Hack. Margaret. Margaret. It's really me. I confirm, rustling her hair. Has Penelope been treating you well? Oh yeah, I mean, totally. Vitamin confirms. Best future mom ever. It sucks that we're pretty much trapped underground again, but I'm glad there's enough space to run around and practice martial arts and stuff. Keeps things from getting too boring. Plus, she feeds us. Margaret. Margaret, come here. What? Margaret shouts from somewhere above us. Her voice is very different from what I remember. I don't want to go down the stairs right now, Vitamin. You come up here. This is worth it. Vitamin shouts back. Come here, come here. An exasperated groan echoes down from the floor above, and soon after follows an ominous, resounding clack click clack, clack click clack as she descends down the stairs. Margaret hums tonelessly. Don't fall, woo. I did it. I sit down and move Vitamin to my lap as the continued cracks of something sharp and dangerous ringing against stone get ever closer. Soon after, a monster of nightmares stalks around the corner and fills the room with its presence. A mortifying construct made entirely of pitch-black bone, a Vrothizo skull stares at me with 4 hollow eyes and a statuesque grin. Attached to it is a vaguely humanoid torso, with bony arms and a structure that seems to be a ribcage until it starts to twist and undulate like rows of black ivory tentacles. In place of human legs, 6 blade-tipped limbs grow from the thick, curved spine, clattering along the ground as it walks. A whip-like tail of anima-joined bone fragments finishes the aesthetic, tipped with a wicked 2-edged blade. Though this creature could very easily be the skeleton of a Vrothizo as is, evidence exists of custom design and alterations. Some bones are carved into shapes or broken into pieces that clearly weren't part of whatever unfortunate creature died to make this body. When Margaret the undead monstrosity speaks, her ribcage twists threads of mana to form the kinemancy she requires. A skeleton has no lungs, after all. Margaret stops. I grin at her, lifting Vitamin onto my shoulders as I stand up. Wow, I say appreciatively. You went and made yourself gorgeous while I was gone, huh Margaret? Vita, she squeaks back, rushing in for a hug. She's close to 2 feet taller than me, so I end up getting a faceful of ribcage. It wraps lovingly around my head and squeezes, which is extra cute. Oh Watcher's eyes, you made it, she blubbers. You're okay. You're okay, you're okay. I'm okay, I confirm. Now you've got to tell me the story of how you became a cool skeleton monster. Oh, it's your favorite kind of story, Penelope agrees. Full of blasphemy? I prompt. She smirks. Absolutely brimming. Well, basically, Margaret explains, while Penelope was really into that cognomancy stuff and Theodora enjoys helping her research biomancy, I figured I'd do what you do and learn a bunch of necromancy. The first question I asked related back to our research about what constitutes a corpse. I wanted to find the lower limit of what the Mistwatcher wouldn't grab a soul out of. And let me guess, I cut in. Skeletons. Skeletons. Margaret chirps happily, her massive, bladed legs tapping happily on the floor. Or specifically, skeleton. Singular. Every single bone in a contiguous body has to be from the same source creature, with like maybe a bit of wiggle room here and there, or Misty seems to take offense. But, they don't have to be the same configuration, or even the same shape as they had in life. I acknowledge as Margaret happily lifts me up onto her back. Well, onto the horizontal part of her spine, really, since she's just bones. It's not the most comfortable sitting position, but it's not that bad either. Being a weird scorpion person skeleton makes Margaret very big, and there's plenty to grab onto. With Vitamin still on my shoulders, we form quite the power team. The real trick was figuring out how to get skeletons to work at all, Margaret continues. Because without muscles and tendons and stuff, bones aren't actually connected to each other. And souls need a contiguous form to inhabit. It took a bit of tweaking, but I ended up isolating and modifying the information contained in your shard to mesh better with exclusively skeletal systems. My body will break apart if any bones get more than about a quarter inch away from their connected partners, but I've beefed my threads up with enough tensile strength that smashing the bones themselves is more likely to be an issue. Sounds like you made some great progress, then, I acknowledge. The results speak for themselves, really. Yeah. Margaret beams, prehensile ribs wiggling with satisfaction. It's just really hard to go downstairs because I'm so front-heavy, The tail helps a lot. But anyway, necromancy is super interesting. It's honestly less about dead soul manipulation and more about manipulating anima for specific functions. Like the way your shards act as a form of artificial anima brain to replace our physical one. Wait, my shards do that? Yep. Margaret confirms. Among a bunch of other things. I suspect naturally occurring revenants are the result of some kind of soul mutation that gives people an inherent anima brain. But I'm not sure. All I know is that the vast majority of souls won't form natural revenants, only dregs after being smashed. If you ever stumble on a natural revenant, try to capture it for me, would you? Sure, I guess, I acknowledge. Oh, that reminds me, though. Penelope. I've gotta show you the animavorous ozoid that was stuck with the prisoners. She's cute, and more importantly she's formerly dead. The slime tried to eat her and failed to digest, so now she's the slime. Oh. Penelope hums. Well, that's certainly interesting. You should take me back to see her when we finish saying hello to everyone. I nod. Speaking of, mind taking us to Theodora, Margaret? I ask. Oh, not at all. Away we go. Skittering along the ground, we race upstairs, passing by rooms far too quickly for me to see what's inside. Not that I really care, I'm just here for the people. Theodora. Margaret calls out. Theodora, come here, come here. What? Theodora snaps back, her voice ringing out from behind a closed door. I'm busy. You're gonna want to come see this. Margaret insists, stopping outside the room. A resounding groan rings from within, and a frighteningly desiccated Theodora emerges from within, looking incredibly exhausted for a woman who's literally incapable of sleep. Her dry skin is stretched tightly over her bones, the muscles and fat between having shriveled away to nearly nothing. What is it, Margaret? She grumbles. Hello, Vitamin. Hello, new, She blinks at me, and the contradictory shitstorm I expected from her emotions never comes. Instead, it's all united, surprise, joy, relief. Her shard no longer wars with her. She's become fully mine in my absence. I grin, despite the nagging worry that this means I'll break my promise to free her. Hey, Theodora, I greet her. Long time no see. She grins back, and it's equally glorious and painful to see. Vita, she breathes. Vita, you made it. Welcome, welcome. She actually extends her arms up for a hug, so I hop down and give it to her. She shudders, actually shudders with relief as she squeezes me for a few seconds before finally letting go. It feels like she's confirming something she's been afraid was false for ages. You okay, Theodora? I ask hesitantly. Do I feel okay? She asks me back. I frown a little. I mean, yeah, I admit. You seem to be doing well. Just not in the way I expected. She shrugs. It wasn't worth fighting you anymore, Vita, she says. It was too much work to make myself miserable for so little gain. So I'm glad you're back, and I'm glad to be glad. I glance at Penelope, who sighs and shakes her head. Animancy, she acknowledges blandly. You and I are up shit creek without a boat. Yeah, I guess so, I agree quietly. Well, good to see you, Theodora. What have you been up to these past 2 years? I've mostly been sitting in a small padded room. Theodora steps back towards the room, waving me in excitedly. I'll show you. The room is oddly humid and warm, and I quickly realize that's because it's full of shelves upon shelves of pulsating, slightly fuzzy lumps of flesh. The lumps have tiny, beady eyes, hairless tails, and twitching mouths, and such underdeveloped limbs that they can't possibly move. What is all this? I ask. Immortality research, of course, Theodora says. These were once rats, but I extensively modified them with Penelope's guidance to my specifications. I'm confident in claiming Theodora is the second best biomancer on Valka, now, Penelope confirms. She's a quick learner. Basically, I'm answering the question of, why does the Watcher put a soul in a body when it does, and by extension, how can we trick it into not ensouling a body until after it has developed? If we answer these two questions, we can start making backup bodies for people, and the biomancy half of our immortality method will be solved. So, I prompt. How close are you? She crosses her arms, smirking triumphantly. Heh, she probably picked that habit up from Penelope. It's done, Theodora declares. Check the soul count in the room. I don't bother to glance around, since I'm already well aware. Literally all of the bodies in the room have a soul in them, I announce blandly, not quite sure what she's getting at. Theodora shoots a smug look at Penelope. Told you. It works. Look deeper, Vita, Penelope insists, not to be outdone by whatever contest this is. So I do, glowering at the souls in the room. Are they fake, or something? The idea of fake souls pisses me off, but I reach out and poke one to confirm it and they certainly feel real. So then what is Wait a moment. The souls are bigger than they should be for rats, much bigger. And there's something inside each soul. Something physical. The trick isn't the number of souls, I realize. It's the number of bodies. All of these rat things are pregnant. But it's difficult to tell without looking for it because the rat's soul encompasses the kid's body. Exactly. Theodora agrees, clapping happily. There are two things I've determined. One, the Watcher doesn't notice that there's a soul-ready body until some time after it develops a complex enough brain for consciousness. Sentience is the first requirement for a soul vessel, not in the sense that the vessel has to be intelligent but just that it has to feel and experience things. I'm not yet sure how the Mist Watcher detects sentience. Penelope suspects it's some kind of biomancy, I have my doubts but in any case it does. Then, a pseudo-random amount of time after a baby is developed enough for at least minimally simplistic thought, the Watcher notices and gifts it a soul. But only, of course, if the Watcher thinks it doesn't currently have one. So with a large enough body, a specifically positioned womb, and a large enough soul, you can put up a screen that makes it harder to see the one body inside the other, I conclude. Nice. It's very useful information, Penelope agrees, but it's not actionable. Humans are substantially larger than rats. There's no way we can make some kind of living human incubator creature with our current resources and knowledge. And the necessary soul size would be prohibitively large for an adult body. Bringing people back to life by dropping them out of giant birthing sacks would also be terrifying and gross, Theodora agrees. Not impossible, but it might cause a bit of a bad public image for our immortality venture. Still, though. Progress. And we're glad you're back, Mom. Vitamin chimes in. Unfortunately, we will need to cut this reunion fairly short, Penelope says. Apparently ours is alive and got released along with Vita, so I really need her to check and make sure he's not somewhere in the city. Oh, holy shit, Theodora swears. Really? Ours is alive? That's terrifying. He's not gonna come after us, is he? Margaret asks. Nah, I dismiss. I think he kind of likes me. I'm his weird estranged experimental daughter, or something. I have no idea if that's better or worse, Theodora admits. It's not important right now, Penelope dismisses. What's important is somehow getting Vita into the city without everyone with a danger sense recognizing her immediately. Do we have any ideas? I've got nothing, Margaret admits. Haven't done any research on how danger senses work. If you know nothing, I'm certainly not going to, Theodora grunts. I'm small and I can punch things. Vitamin adds helpfully. Then we have a problem, Penelope grumbles. I can't in good conscience not take Vita to Skyhope, but I certainly can't be seen with someone that matches even part of an escaped convict's description either. Well, why not just have both of you go in disguise? Vitamin asks. Penelope blinks. Ah. Right, that would make sense. Thank you, Vitamin. I suppose we'll go ask Nugas for some appropriate outfits. Look at how lovely you two are when you match. Nugas chirps happily. Oh, you're regular queens of death. Don't these disguises seem rather distinctive and obvious? I ask. I thought we were trying to avoid attention. I thought so too at first, Nugas agrees, tilting her head. But then I realized you don't want or need a disguise to hide from common citizens. You're looking to fool people that have danger senses and recognize the distinctive terror of the blue girl. We want to give them something new to latch onto, not a mystery to try and puzzle out. That's quite astute, Nugas, Penelope agrees. These outfits might not strike a perfect balance there, and having new rumors running around at all is somewhat of a problem, but it's unavoidable in this case. This should do fine. Unless Penelope has to draw a knife on someone, I joke. You still don't have any idea how to fight, do you? She chuckles. Well, not really. I'll certainly look like an amateur with a knife. But I'm prepared for an undercover altercation. Well, hopefully it won't come to that, Nugas says. You both look delightfully intimidating, after all. And Penelope can just spoof a different talent by casting with her internal tentacles. Wait, her what? Nothing really noteworthy, I report. Can you feel the outer walls from here? Penelope asks. Yep, there are a handful of people walking up at a height that can't be anything but the walls. Yeah. It's about a quarter of my total sensory range in that direction. I feel the tip of the forest too. Holy shit, Penelope breathes. That's nearly 5 miles from here. Well, cool. I grin. Then we've just gotta walk like 3 or 4 miles in the opposite direction for me to feel the other side of the city. I think we might have to do a small loop, but yes, Penelope agrees. This shouldn't take much time at all. Let's go, then. Stick to avoiding everyone we can. You got it. I confirm. Geez, it's like scouting for the hunters again. We remove ourselves from the warehouse, and I quickly start navigating us through the streets of Skyhope. It's weird now. There's a ton of wood everywhere, of all things, and nearly every major street has been completely rebuilt after the sewers collapsed. Not to mention, whenever we cross a road that's long and straight enough, we can stare all the way down into the center of Skyhope Crater and see the massive, gaping hole that was once the center city. It hardly feels familiar at all. Still, it's not too difficult a task to steer us along, walking in a wide circle as I keep the outer walls at the periphery of my senses. It doesn't take more than 20 minutes to find my first notable soul. Well, you are, Penelope corrects. I work with her every few days. You do? She snorts. Vita, did no one mention that I'm a first lady now? We're both councilwomen. No shit? I ask, raising my eyebrows. Wow, congratulations. That was a major goal for you, right? How'd you pull that off? I let out an appreciative whistle. Wow, I acknowledge. That sounds like a fun time. Just hearing about it makes me hungry. She laughs, and I suddenly pick up on another interesting soul in range. Oh hey, Lark is here too, I say. Did I ever mention I spared that little Vrothizo? You did not, Penelope accuses. But I figured that out when I became her officially assigned biomancer. She's a Templar trainee now. I do a double take. I'm sorry, what? I ask. Seriously? Seriously, Penelope nods. It's hilarious. It seems she ended up rather devout, Penelope shrugs. And she's happy to do whatever she's told, more or less. I imagine that's why they like her. I snort. It sounds like you like her, I say. Oh, I absolutely do, Penelope agrees. Don't worry, I'm working to slowly turn her against them. But even without that, it's wonderful having a live Vrothizo to experiment on. They are absolutely incredible creatures. Well, I'm glad it's working out for you, I guess, I grunt. That ungrateful little shit better not come after me, though. Bah, she's a sweetheart, Penelope dismisses. You may as well be afraid of getting attacked by Bentley. We laugh at that, and since we're alone I lean in to give her another hug as well. From there, our trip around Skyhope is mostly uneventful. We chat about a few other familiar souls, but as I expected, ours isn't here. One last important stop for the day, then, Penelope says as we return to the warehouse. We've got to go visit your family. So we do. 15 minutes of casting and one disorienting change of location later, we appear in a cellar, a collection of beautifully familiar souls above us. It's pitch black in here, but I waste no time casting a simple light spell, locating the hatch, and tossing it open. Ronnie. Basra. Katie. Norman. Raphael. Yari. Doodle. Larkin. Sylvie. They're here. That's everyone except for Sonia and Jared, though I think I sense them a ways down the street, walking this way with Rowan. It's hard to tell, because holy dang so many of them grew so much. In height and stuff, sure, but also in soul. Some of them have usable talents. To that end, something stirs inside Norman and with an explosive jerk his swing swaps direction, rushing back towards my head when he should still be caught well within the backswing. Neat. I catch the dull practice blade with one hand anyway, gleefully drinking in the look of raw terror on his face. Why's he so freaked out? He has a danger sense now. That's not a guess, I chide playfully. Basra. Norman calls. Basra, help. My dull-eyed little sister pokes her head into the room, a nonplussed look on her face. Bro, she grunts. There's only one person we know who's that freaky and that short. I stiffen, dropping the blade as I whirl on Basra. Hey. I protest. I'm not that short. I grew 2 whole inches, I think. So now I'm Penelope, how tall am I? 5 foot even, she calls up. 5 foot even. I declare proudly. 5 foot even, she grunts. That's cool. What? I protest. How? How did you get this tall? You're like 13. I'm 14, and I got tall because of the inherent unfairness of life, Basra answers. Deal with it. Also like, welcome home and stuff. Vita. Norman realizes, finally catching up with the conversation. You nearly gave me a heart attack. Vita. A half-dozen other kids parrot, and soon I'm swarmed with hugs. Ah, look at you all. You all got so big and strong. I coo. Have you been okay? What all happened while I was gone? And so I start getting their stories, hearing how Capita teleported them to safety during the perception event, how Basra and Norman are training to be hunters, which I'm not sure how I feel about, to be honest, and how they and all the younger kids have been going to school. School. Like that thing for rich people. They have tutors. Rowan soon walks inside with the other 2 kids and the second round of hugs begins. Apparently part of the reason we can afford tutors for the kids is because he works as one. He teaches chinemancy to rich people now, and also gets contracts from the army and the Templars to help train people against illusory threats. That's so cool. I squeal, squeezing him hard enough for him to start making strained noises. Rowan, this place is so nice. I figured Penelope was just bankrolling you. Well, I kind of am, since your mother works for me, Penelope comments, looking up from a currently shirtless Ronnie. That she happens to be working on. But she certainly earns it. Where is she, anyway? I ask. Probably catching up on the dozens of things she was ostensibly busy doing while she was actually out saving you, Rowan answers, rustling my hair. She dropped by to give everyone a heads up you'd be back and ran off. Though Norman just conveniently forgot about that and decided to try to brain you with a stick, Basra drawls. Hey! Norman yelps. I didn't expect it, okay? It's fine, I got to see your cool sword move, I dismiss, waving him off. It's not like it would have hurt. Oh. Basra deadpans. I think that sounds like a challenge, Norman. I think it does, he agrees. Please don't beat up your big sister, she's experimentally relevant, Penelope calls. Also, I love her. Is she really my big sister? Basra asks. Anyway Vita, what have you been up to? Rowan asks. You've got to give us your side of the story. So I tell them. I talk about heading out to help people in the perception event, getting cornered by Brown the ubiquitous and fighting him off, getting captured and waking up in restraints. I tell them about jail, about my decision to bide my time, about the beatings I endured and the hypocrisy of our nation's so-called protectors. I told the story of freeing ours, of killing the High Templar, of liberating the prison and of escaping Braum and Kasha again. But right when I'm about to talk about meeting up with Penelope again, she stops me, mind whirling. Wait. You never told me about this entourage of followers you left in the forest. I thought it was just you, Lynn, and the Revenants. Oh, nope, I clarify. Like I said, Jalissa was the only good one, so it felt wrong not to keep her alive. And then she convinced me to keep 3 other Templars we found alive as well. And you just left them? Penelope presses urgently. They're still in the forest, alongside the Templar-aligned serving staff, unsupervised. Well, not unsupervised, no, I protest. I have a handful of revenants, some of them crazy strong, not to mention Altrix. And, like hundreds of dregs. Besides, the 3 extra Templars are collared, the serving staff are all talentless, and Jalissa's only real talent is getting along with people. They're not going anywhere. Penelope pinches the bridge of her nose. Vita, we need to go back, she insists. Now. What? I blink in surprise. Why? Because you took a ragtag, disparate collection of shaky alliances bound only by fear of you, and left them alone with the only person all of them like. You handed that woman a coup on a silver platter. Oh. You wouldn't mind teleporting us again, would you? I ask. Penelope sighs. I'm already casting it. I really, really hate the smell of the forest. It reminds me of the fight where my limbs were bitten off and I nearly got my whole team killed. That, and there's just so many things to sense. I've trained myself extensively to be able to pick out and identify dangerous scents and sounds, so it's not overwhelming, but it's certainly a lot. And now with Vita gone, I feel obligated to be the one directing everybody to safety. Which is a surprisingly difficult task even when we're just holding position in a shallow part of the forest. Excoriyo. I call out. Hey, there's something big heading this way from starboard. I would have asked Manus, but he's out intercepting something on the opposite side, and... We will go, Excoriyo cuts me off, turning to walk towards where I'm pointing. You will follow us. Yes ma'am, I acknowledge, hurrying after. The clearing we're all huddled in, if you can call it a clearing, really, considering how many parts of it are blocked by trees, contains the whole collection of convicts and workers that followed Vita, mostly out of a fear of not making it to a town on their own. Considering that she just randomly left and we don't know how long it will be until she comes back, the handful of folks that know how to build shelters have been directing others to do exactly that. Thus, the start of a pretty large camp is slowly getting erected in the middle of human hostile territory. You have been proactive about scouting threats, jealous of Etta, Excoriyo continues. Thank you. But we find ourselves somewhat disturbed. Vita and her revenants each indicated we would be relatively safe here. And we were, until quite recently. What changed? Being a big group is attracting a lot of attention, I answer. Larger apex monsters that would normally avoid this part of the forest due to relative food scarcity are sensing us and roaming this way. And I'm like 90% sure Vita just being around was scaring them off before. Excoriyo smirks with satisfaction. Ah, the forest knows its ruler. Good. We are ignorant about forest traversal, we admit. How much trouble is this camp in? Who is Tommy? Excoriyo asks. I blink. Oh, he's the revenant with the powerful cold-based thermomancy talent. The one that fought alongside Captain Manus. Ah, Excoriyo nods. His name is actually Ice Guy now. That's a bit dehumanizing, I comment. You may have noticed with those particularly keen senses of yours, jealous of Etta, but he is no longer human. We think it is an appropriate title, and he is pleased with being given a new name by his master. Ah, is that the beast? We think we see it. Excoriyo glances at a mid-sized herbivorous snake that has been entirely minding its own business, and suddenly it balloons into a mass of horrifying mutant tumors. I hear its heartbeat strain and end moments later. No, that wasn't it, I clarify, trying not to wince. Poor thing. You should see it coming through the trees up ahead in about 30 seconds or so. Actually, I've been meaning to ask. Victoria said you sometimes used your talent at random back at the prison, and... No, Excoriyo corrects. We have full control of our talent. I was using it on purpose, trying to test ways around the collar. Sano and Nyx never cared to, but that's how I spent my time. I suck on the inside of my lip. So you were trying to kill whoever walked in through the door? I ask hesitantly. Our talent does far more than kill, jealous of Etta, Excoriyo answers. If that was supposed to be a denial, it didn't sound like one. She snorts, shaking her head slightly. We were in prison for 12 years, Inquisitor. Our own child forgot us in that time. She gives me a side-eyed glower. I rather wish you had all been killed sooner. Wouldn't you, in our position? I don't have an answer to that, but I do at least have a good distraction. 36 seconds after my callout, damn, I'm off my game, a massive limb bursts through the trees, pulling behind it a thin, gangly body with 5 other horrifyingly long arms. The beast's legs are all tipped with hairy, almost humanoid hands, with 3 joints in each arm. Every one of them is over 4 times longer than the main body itself, which is almost entirely a giant, gaping mouth. The spider-walk snatcher, as it's called, barely gets a chance to terrify every onlooker before Excorial gruesomely murders it with a look, a satisfied grin splitting her face all the while. We did not taint the meat, she comments idly. Though we do remove almost all the marbling in the process. Still, we could have some people butcher that for supplies. I think we're good for now. I respond diplomatically. Actually, while I've got you here, I was kinda wondering if I could ask you some personal things. If that's alright. The lumpy, twisted-toothed woman turns my way, a piercing glare in her eyes. I think I'm the only person that I've seen hold her stare without, staring at how odd she looks. I wonder what she thinks of that, though it would probably be rude to point that out, so I don't intend to ask. Perhaps, Excorial nods. You're certainly welcome to ask, but we may not answer. You, however, we are also hoping to ask a few things. And you will answer. Yay, more threats. I just shrug and nod, though. It's not like I have anything to hide. Go for it. What is your plan, here, she asks. We see you've been establishing yourself as a point of command, directing Vita's forces as if they were your own. What opening are you trying to create? I scowl slightly, a bit surprised by the question but quickly seeing the logic behind it. I'm not really the planning type, I admit honestly. I just wing it, generally. I help whoever's in front of me. Right now, that's everyone here. You included. I'm directing people because I can tell where the threats are coming from before anyone else, and I don't want those threats to hurt anyone. That's it. Excorial considers. We lack Vita's ability to sniff out falsehoods, so consider me still suspicious. We, then me. That's got to be purposeful, but I can only guess as to what it implies right now. If I had some kind of master escape plan or whatever, don't you think Vita would have noticed me plotting it before she left? I counter. Excorial's expression is difficult to read with how different her face is, but I still see the subtle tightening and unfocusing of her eyes that indicates she's considering it. Her muscles, tense under the bulbous growths on her skin, relax ever so slightly. Subconsciously, I've been judged as less of a threat. Which is good, because I'm really not one. Anyway, if it's okay to ask, I transition awkwardly, I was curious about your whole situation. Sorry, I really have no idea how to address this politely. You're more than one person, right? She chuckles. It's a rhetorical question, but I just don't know how else to start the subject change. Oh. Is that all? Yes, we are. In some ways we also aren't, but generally speaking we are and prefer to be referred to as separate. Great, cool, I nod. So how does that work? When I'm talking to you, for example, is Nyx listening? And would it be rude to address her? Excorial shrugs. She is aware, yes. We are all always aware, but only one of us moves the vessel at a time. And to answer your question, well, you are standing near 3 people. It is generally rude to talk to one only if you act as though the others are not there, wouldn't you say? I raise my eyebrows. Oh, shit, I have been being rude. Sorry, Nyx. Sorry, Sano. Hello to you both. I haven't met you, Sano, but gosh, I feel awful. Is it okay if I meet Sano? Like, talk to her? Is that a thing I can ask? Excorial smiles, but it's thin and tense. You are more than welcome to ask. Never expect or demand. For now, the vessel remains mine. I hesitate, not sure if it's wise to press that point. I decide to do it anyway. Didn't Vita do that? I ask. Make a demand, I mean. Back at the prison. She put Excorio in charge. I remember that. She shoved her tentacles into this woman and squeezed her soul until she obeyed. Again, Excorio gets more tense, more stressed. I think I can see, with soul sight, the aspects of Nyx and Sano clawing at her ever so slightly. She did, Excorio agrees. And I forgive her, because she is ignorant in her forgetfulness, and because her joy is our purpose. She hisses the last 3 words, and I get the impression she's not just speaking to me. And I notice, then, that perhaps I have an opportunity here after all. I didn't lie to her, I don't have any kind of plan to harm Vita or escape here or whatever. But I'm good at winging it, and I see the obvious opening. If Sano or Nyx is willing to use their talent to help us escape rather than hold us in, we have a chance. We can break through the undead, survive the forest, and bring word to the Templars. But to do that, I would need to emotionally manipulate Ultrix into turning against herself, and I literally can't imagine how much that would suck for her. Unless I'm misreading her, and to be fair, I totally could be. I've only seen Excorio since the prison. I don't know if that's normal or not, but I do know she's been getting progressively more stressed. There's got to be a better way forward than exacerbating that, and in the absence of immediate danger I'm willing to bet on it. Do you want to talk about it? I ask. We have already talked about this, Excorio snaps. Extensively. Sure, and that's good. But sometimes it can help to have a third, I mean, a fourth party to explain things to and bounce ideas off of. She scowls at me. It's frustrating how I can't tell if you're being genuine or not. I think you can tell, I posit. You're just accurately reading me as completely genuine, and that makes you suspicious. Excorio snorts. It is very strange. Yeah, I agree. I get that a lot. We should start walking this way, another hungry one is coming. She doesn't say anything but she does follow, and the lull in conversation means my mind has nothing to focus on beyond my hyperactive senses. The mix of dead and living leaves, a fresh rotting plant smell puffing through the scent of hardworking sweaty bodies. It's putrid, arguably in a way I'm used to, but my senses never quite pick up the same things twice. There's always a new subtlety, a point of intense oddity that pounds at my conscious mind and demands attention. What I want to do is focus on the sights and sounds right next to me, the quickening of Altrix's heart rate, the tense subvocalizations she's unconsciously making as she presumably speaks with the other people that are part of her. Unfortunately, the forest is just too distracting. Oh, well. She can tell me what's going on if and when she's ready. One more horrifyingly bloated forest monster later, Excorio turns to scowl at me. You're getting your wish, we suppose, she grumbles. Sano has agreed not to assist the escape of the prisoners if I release control of the vessel. It takes me a second to realize by prisoners she means the Templars. Not the actual former prisoners. Okay, I say. I wasn't really trying to fish for a conversation with Sano, We know, she cuts me off. We want this. Okay, I nod. Well, let me know when I'm talking to Sano, then. It will happen when it happens, Excorio grunts. Keeping the vessel is much easier than giving it up on purpose. Oh, sure, I allow, having absolutely no context for that. Well, I hope I can help. Ultrix is silent after that, and for the next half hour or so we continue to thin out aggressive threats until they finally slow down, apparently recognizing we're not the free meat we seem to be. A subtle change passes over Ultrix during that time, and I'm not quite sure when exactly I'm walking alongside someone else, but by the time she speaks it's been long since obvious. Hello to you too, Inquisitor, she deadpans. Oh, are you Sano, then? I ask. It's nice to meet you. One thing that always struck me about Excoriyo is how she has a very posh, almost noble-like inflection in bearing. Sano doesn't seem to match that, walking with a slight slouch and speaking with such little inflection. She reminds me of Vita herself. We'd say the same, but we've known you for a while now, Sano grunts. You mind if we head through the middle? I click my tongue once to double-check we're clear on incoming threats, then nod. Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. We head away from the zombie army circle that marks the outside of the protected zone, towards the camp. Well, the camps, I should say. There's an obvious divide between former prisoners and non-former prisoners, but thankfully the peace Vita forcibly established hasn't yet atrophied in her absence. That said, the prisoners are making temporary shelters mainly through undead labor and either refusing to share it or being refused by the others. The serving staff and bound Templars aren't doing a bad job of setting up their own makeshift tents, though. What surprises me, however, is how Sano immediately starts glancing around rapidly, as if trying to taking every detail in as little time as possible. I wonder what she's doing at first, but then I follow her gaze and watch as a minuscule cut heals and vanishes as she glances at it. Oh, wow, I say. That's actually super impressive. Our names all have a meaning, you know, Sano says. Apparently, the artist thought it was funny to name the people he made like things. Just nouns and verbs, from some ancient language. My name just means heal. I was very literally made for this. Oh, I answer awkwardly. Sorry, is that a sore subject? A slight increase in the pungency of her sweat indicates how stressed she gets from saying so. I imagine it's pretty terrible to be angry at part of yourself like that, I supply. You don't know anything about it, Sano snaps. Well, you're completely right, I agree. I suppose that's why I have to imagine. But I can tell that you're having a hard time. I don't know what it's like to share a soul with two other people, but you're still people. I can understand that. She sighs through her nose, making her way towards the former staff side of the camp, where the Templars are also staying. Hey, well, that's something we have in common at least, I comment, having no idea how else to navigate that absolute minefield of a rant. I changed Vita's diapers too. Well, kind of. She didn't have diapers at the time, she just shit her pants. Ha. Really? Sano smirks. In the prison, you mean? Yeah, she would just randomly fall into a coma sometimes, I explain. Sometimes for days at a time. So we had to clean her up. Sano's face falls. Oh. That's We didn't know that. Are they okay? As far as I know, yeah, I reassure her. The problem doesn't seem to be physical, and I think she was doing it on purpose. She huffs in annoyance. See, that's exactly the kind of shit we want to know. But no, Excoriyo just sits back and never initiates anything. Just lets the kid walk all over us. We just aff. The staff gives Ultrix fearful looks as we walk among them, heading towards where the three-collared Templars are doing their best to help despite having their hands bound behind their backs. Victoria nods at me as we approach, though she sends Sano a nervous look. Don't give us that, Sano grumbles at her. We swapped. And Excoriyo wouldn't actually hurt you. Victoria's eyebrows raise. Oh. Sorry. Sano, right? Yeah, Sano confirms. Right again. You doing okay, Victoria? I'm alive, I guess, she answers, nodding. Thank you. Hey, Jalissa. Are things going okay? We're safe for now, and attacks are dying down, I confirm. No idea where the Queen of the Dead is, though. Victoria tenses. Jalissa, you can't call her that, she insists. I raise a placating hand. It was ironic, Vicky. Sorry. She relaxes, nodding. She and the other two Templars have understandably been on edge this entire, let's call it, an excursion. Sano, Victoria suddenly pleads, turning to her. Can you help us get out of here? Yes, Sano grunts. But we are not going to. Sano, Vita is going to kill us, Victoria insists. We'll stop her, I promise. I'm just worried an escape attempt will make her more likely to kill you, Vicky, I say simply. I can talk to her. She's powerful, but she's still a person. I'm getting through to her. I hesitate. She's not wrong, exactly. I just don't know what she expects me to do about it. I'm good with people, not with prison breaks. Hell, that's the opposite of my job. Though I'm apparently not good at that either. Should you really be having this conversation with us standing here? Sano asks blandly. We believe we made our position clear. Come on, Jelisaveta. Take us to the next closest threat. I agree, following her as she turns and leaves. What must it be like, do you think? I muse out loud. To be forced to love and obey something. It sounds terrifying. It is, Sano says bluntly. Our love is probably artificial. I blink in surprise, staring her way. She has a distant look in her eyes and a slight frown. I hear her tongue run along the inside of her mouth, poking at her twisted teeth. We were made after Vita was, Sano continues. Excorio is right, to an extent. To love them, to see them happy, that is our entire reason to exist. And we do love Vita. But it is so frightening to wonder, are we able to not love them? And if so, is our love less real? We don't know. But even after what Vita did to us, we want so desperately to forgive them. They do not deserve it, but we want to forgive them. I think it's okay to want to forgive people you love, I respond idly. But you should definitely assert yourself. Talk to her about what hurt you. Ask for an apology. Communicate. Vita isn't heartless, she's just, I don't know. She just doesn't get things sometimes. You should be specific and explicit with her. We know, Sano snaps. We raised that child. But now we're just nothing to them. All our time together is gone. How can we possibly bridge the gap of what we mean to each other? This is why we will not help you. Why we could never help you. If we betray Vita, we will lose our chance to be family again. Yet her tone and expression don't match her words. The way she refuses to meet my eyes, all the little subtle ticks and twitches. I could be wrong, but I'm going to take a chance here. I have to. How about you head to the port end of camp, then, and make sure we're safe, I say, because Skyhope is in the complete opposite direction. Most of the attacks have been coming from there, Sano agrees. The deeper forest is that way. Exactly, I confirm. I might send Manus and, Ice Guy to back you up as well. I turn to part ways, my heart beating fast. Vita isn't here right now, and I doubt she'll want to stick around this close to Skyhope for long, so this is probably our best chance to escape. Thank you, Sano calls back to me. For all your help, and for all your questions. For my questions? Yeah, it was my pleasure, I answer honestly. I hope things work out with you and Vita. Sano cackles lightly. You really don't see us at cross purposes at all, do you? She asks. We truly hope you survive, Jelisaveta. Me too, I guess. I call back. Thanks again. I jog off, searching for Jeremiah. He's easy enough to find, the dude still smells like tea, even all the way out in the middle of nowhere. He and Manus are chatting, the latter of whom curtly nods to me as I approach. Inquisitor, he greets. It's kind of creepy how he sounds and acts pretty much exactly the same as he did in life. More threats. We're pretty much good for now, I think, I tell him. I think Altrix would like to talk to you, though. She's up port. He nods again and swiftly departs, leaving me with Jeremiah. I swallow my nervousness and just come out with it. Are you interested in returning to Skyhope? I ask. He raises his eyebrows. If I was, I would have done so by now. Unfortunately, I happen to be a convicted blasphemer, so I doubt I would be particularly welcome. What if I argued for a pardon? He clicks his tongue and I try very hard not to wince. He notices anyway. Apologies, jealous Avetta. Bad habit on my part. Anyway, to answer your question, I must still decline. I'm afraid I struggle to trust the gratitude your superiors are capable of displaying. Shit. Well, there goes my first idea on how to get past the undead army. Can we run for it? I rack my memory, trying to figure out how far Skyhope is from here. On an entirely unrelated note, however, Jeremiah muses, I find myself impressed with Vita's ability to create a powerful horde, but her creativity is somewhat lacking. Especially in terms of complicated command structure. The idea of using relatively intelligent Risen as a sort of commanding officer, that the dregs follow and copy enables her to give much more complicated attack and defend commands as standing orders. However, her army is still only as intelligent as a series of animals. It doesn't seem to be doing anything more complicated than attacking any monsters that approach. It's unlikely to react to any humans leaving. Not unless they had some way to tell a prisoner apart from a non-prisoner. I say. I see. That's very interesting, Jeremiah. Thank you. It's a good thing I'm already in the habit of not reacting to things, because otherwise I'd be screaming as loudly on the outside as I am on the inside. I can't believe I'm doing this. But I can't not do this. I'm not going to just wait around for someone else to decide if she'll kill my comrades. It's my obligation to take that option off the table entirely. There's a good chance we'll all die. I know that. But while I may wake up helpless every morning, I also wake up a Templar. If they want to risk it, I'll help them. They're the ones in the most danger. Them and well. The last person I feel the need to talk to. I spot and grab a few bugs on the way, since I know she'll like them. Jealous Avetta. Melissa calls happily, collapsing into a puddle and quickly flowing over to me before reforming her humanoid shape. Hello. You've been so busy, we've barely talked. She giggles. Jealous Avetta, she repeats. It's such a big, fun name. I'm so happy I can finally remember it. Hey, Melissa, I greet her back, holding out the bugs in my hands. I brought you a little snack. Ooh, yummy. Thank you. Slowly and carefully, she moves her hand over mine, pressing herself over the insects and sucking them up into her body without making contact with my skin. Good. Melissa cheers, her golden body glistening as the struggling bugs dissolve inside her. How are you, jealous Avetta? I've been great. This trip has been so fun. I'm so happy you brought Miss Vita to help me. I grimace. Yeah, for sure, I allow. Though that's actually what I wanted to ask you about. Can you keep a secret? Ooh, I used to be great at keeping secrets, Melissa giggles. Not as good now, but I'll try my best. Oh wow, ouch, I say, but I laugh a little. If she can, why shouldn't I? Well, I'm actually sort of leaving. With a few people. Very soon. Her fake, silhouette eyes go wide with surprise. Oh, no. Really? I'll miss you very much. Well, that's what I wanted to ask, I say. Do you want to go with me? To Skyhope? As I'd feared, she doesn't react with excitement. But what I didn't expect is for her to shrink down and look scared. I still can't stay solid very well, she murmurs, starting to nervously and very literally wring her hands together. So I hurt people I touch. That's okay, I promise her. You're getting better at it, it won't be a problem forever. We'll find a way to keep you and everyone else safe until then. She takes a step back, no longer looking my way. Miss Vita says if Templars other than you find me, they'll make me stop eating again. And I'll forget. I freeze. I mean, I'm sure if we explain it to them it'll be fine. You eat bugs. That doesn't hurt anyone. Then why didn't they feed me any, she whispers. They had to know. Nah, I don't think they did, I dismiss. There was nothing in your file about eating. I shut up. There was nothing in Vita's file about her eating souls either, was there? Animavrism is recognized as a thing that exists, but I've never really heard much about it beyond that. And I worked with Melissa for barely a month before having my bright idea to just feed her live meals. What are the odds literally no one else tried that in well over a decade of incarceration? Is Miss Vita wrong? Melissa asks me. She sounds hopeful, like she wants it to not be true. But am I willing to risk Melissa's life over it? Would you like to stay here? I ask her. It's not an answer to her question, but she interprets it as one. Perhaps rightly so. Yes, she nods. Will I see you again? Count on it, I promise. Eat well and remember me. That beautiful, golden smile returns. Okay, she agrees. Swallowing all that panic, I find and relocate Ice Guy, praying to the Watcher that the revenants don't just randomly wander back towards the prisoners. Ostensibly, Ultrix is the one supposed to be guarding them, but in practice it has always been Vita's ability to keep track of everyone at once that keeps everybody in line. Either way, they should hopefully be used to assuming the prisoners are dealt with and not get overly suspicious for at least 5 minutes. Then I collect some cloaks from the supplies that can cover up the prisoner collars. Not to fool any guards, but to hopefully fool the dumbass undead who likely don't have any other way to tell prisoners from non-prisoners. Every other part of the plan is just not a plan. I have to rely on none of the former prisoners wandering away from their separate camp and seeing us. I have to rely on none of the former staff wanting to rat us out as we very obviously start to leave. I have to rely on there not being some clever method to let dregs distinguish who is and isn't allowed to leave their circle, but as far as I know, we won't get another chance like this one. But maybe we will and I'm screwing up everything. Who knows? Okay, I have maybe an eighth of a plan, I say, grabbing Victoria and the other 2 Templars whose names I do not actually know. But we have an opening. Do you want to go now? They look at me in surprise. Wait, seriously? Victoria hisses. That was fast. We thought you weren't going to. I work fast, I shrug. But I'm serious, I have no idea if this will work. I just got the dangerous people away from the starboard side and I'm thinking maybe if you cover your collars the zombies will think you aren't prisoners. That's it. That's what I've got. But I figure we need to do this now, because there's no way to know when Vita will come back. The 3 of them look at each other, and they all nod. We unfortunately don't have a way to remove the collars, but it's pretty easy to find something sharp to cut their other bindings with. Then we throw the cloaks on and, with held breath, wade through multiple deadly layers of undead monsters. The beasts come in all shapes and sizes, but each of them stands with utter stillness as we pick our way carefully around them, soon breaking free from their circle and passing out of sight. Risen are stupid, I shrug. Dregs are stupider. We automatically descend into tactical silence from there on out. We have some basic, if incredibly shitty weapons, mostly sticks and clubs, plus we're all unarmored. Any sort of fight would be catastrophic, which means every step we take is my responsibility. It's horribly nerve-wracking, but while I'm an awful fighter by Templar standards I suppose I can admit I'm an above-average scout. Avoiding confrontation is pretty much my primary skill in all walks of life, when you think about it. I move us at as quick of a pace as I can without feeling like I'm guessing our path, and the farther we travel the easier it gets. We are, after all, approaching Skyhope, which means we're moving through the part of the forest that gets more hunter patrols than any other area by far. Dangerous monsters are relatively uncommon, and many of the ones still around have learned to fear humans. When we're about to approach the 1-hour mark of our journey, however, everything predictably goes wrong in the worst way possible. I hear it. The sound I've been afraid of from the start of this escape plan. A cacophony of pounding steps, approaching us from behind. The horde advances on us. Run, I order, and we all move, leaving our fate to the watcher. Because leading them at the front is their self-proclaimed queen, and I doubt she's happy. A foul scent carries itself on the wind, attacking my nose with murderous intent and forcing me to rely only on echolocation to chart the way forward. But what else can we do? Fire in my limbs and daggers in my lungs, we push forward with the speed of hunted prey. Because that's what we are, all we are, in the face of her fury. When my ears finally pick up the open and beautiful sound of the forest's edge, I know we're not close enough. We're going to have contact, I puff, and move us to a direct course. After all, it's run into a monster in front of us or be trampled by the army of them from behind. A furious and hungry pentapede stabs at us as we run past its nest, shrieking with murderous intent and giving Victoria a deep gash through her arm before we outpace it, but I can tell that still won't be enough. We're slowing down too quickly. Our bodies and souls can't handle this for much longer. So it's still over 100 yards to the edge of the forest when the army of undead overtakes us. First come the birds. Many of them were just normal, harmless animals in life, but they peck and tear at our skulls with unbridled hatred as larger, deadlier threats swoop down and demand our attention. I swat one out of the sky with my makeshift club, but by then the faster land monsters are biting at us from behind, catsells and arrowhounds and talon kings. One bites hard into my calf, twisting and trying to knock me to the ground, but Victoria and one of the other Templars smash its skull with well-placed strikes as I stumble. We're swinging left and right, beating away attackers as we continue to make ground towards Skyhope, but there are 4 of us and 400 of them. It's a surprise to us all when we actually burst out of the trees, our destination now visible in front of us. Screams erupt ahead as wide-eyed farm workers see an explosion of undead flow out from the forest behind us, shrieking for blood and death. The walls of Skyhope spot us immediately, the alarms sounding ahead to mobilize the army. Never has Skyhope felt like a more perfect name for our capital city than now, when we know reinforcements are coming. We'll soon be seeing soldiers pour out from the gate, coming to our rescue. Even as we get cut off, the horde overtaking and moving to encircle us, that knowledge along with the fear of death keeps us swinging. Or maybe it just made us foolish, because we didn't think to be afraid when the zombies stopped attacking us until after she emerged from their midst. Dressed in a black cloak with a blindfold over her eyes, I can still see her scowl furiously, glaring at us with open hatred. She's clearly the source of the pungent smell, as it's so overpoweringly horrid at this range I have no choice but to plug my nose or suffer an episode. She never smelled like this before, but I don't have time to think about what changed as we get locked into her kill range. She strokes our souls, and I'm filled with a frigid terror so all-consuming that I drop to my knees. "So," she says blandly. "You really went and did it, huh?" I swallow. "We're not dead. I still have work to do. Can you of all people really blame us for staging a prison break?" I joke desperately. She tsks once, and it's almost a laugh. "A partial win, perhaps. How about I kick the shit out of you for 2 years while demanding you kill your family, and then you can get back to me on that," she sneers. "I can't believe you 4 got just far enough to be annoying." "I was trying to get my friends to safety," I plead. I know she can empathize with that, of all things. "Get everyone home, convince everyone to leave you alone as best I can, and make sure Victoria can have her baby somewhere safe." "You know, the really funny thing is that I might have been about to let you do that," Vita sighs, glowering up at the army approaching from the distance behind us. Her own undead forces turn and, to my surprise, start to leave, flowing back into the forest. There's now nothing at our backs but freedom. Not that any of us are willing to risk running away from Vita. Then just do that, I beg. Let us go. You can show everyone in Skyhope, right now, that you're merciful. That you can be reasoned with, that you can be an ally. What it would show them, Vita glowers, is that when I make demands they don't really mean anything. That I can just be walked all over, as usual. She clenches her fists so hard she starts shaking, and I'm struck for a moment with the reminder of how tiny they are. Like a child's. What is she? Oh, no. No, no, no. Vita, wait. I shout, jumping to my feet. In an instant, she's on me. A shattering kick to my ribs and I'm knocked on my back. A second stomp lands where the first strike did, and I hold back a cry of pain as her boot holds me down. All three of my fellow Templars move to attack her immediately, an expertly coordinated strike from all sides. They were ready for this. Only you, Vita tells me again, and they die.